of land development and knowledge of the operations of the city. I'm really excited to be working with all of you and getting to know you a little bit more. I welcome you to the City Planning Commission. And if you don't mind, I would like for each new commissioners to introduce themselves and so that way those that are participating in the meeting have a little bit of background of who you are and what's going on. And I'm going to kind of ask everybody, and I'm going by alphabetical order. So Ashley, you get to go first. If you could just say a little bit about you, that'd be great.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so hi, I'm Ashley Sadowski. I am an architect by training. I've practiced for about 13 years and then recently decided to go back to school and study urban planning. So I have a background in architecture, a bit of a background in real estate development, and also urban planning, both in schooling and also in past experience. So I'm really passionate about Kansas City. I grew up in Kansas City. I moved away for a little while and came back, and I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you. Bruce, you're next.
Yes, I'm Bruce Allender. I'm a Associate Vice President of Black & Veatch. My background for my whole entire career has been in water and wastewater, currently doing a lot in stormwater flood management across the United States. I've lived in, my accent won't say this, but I've lived in Kansas City for now 20 years and call it home, originally from Australia, and worked in public-private partnerships essentially all around the world, mostly in Asia, but also worked in London, Mexico, and a little time in South Africa as well. So I'm really happy to be a part of the commission and see how we move Kansas City forward in a positive manner.
Very good. Thank you. Kokathia. Did I say that right?
Almost. It's
Okay.
Kokithia.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Hello, everyone. Kokithia Hill. I currently serve as a Director of Research and Leadership Development at the University of Kansas, but I am a lifelong Kansas Citian on the Missouri side. I served as a former council person. I was 5th District, and I'm excited to be here today. A lot of my background has been in community organizing, community development, neighborhood planning, so I'm excited to be here with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Forrestine.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. I'm a commercial broker by trade. I've done that since about 2010. I'm very active in the community, serve on several different boards that had been appointed through the mayor's office. I did run for council at one point. That was an interesting experience, but my passion is for the city, the 3rd District, and the Metropolitan as a whole. That's it.
Thank you. By chance, do you have a camera? Can we see you? Or
I don't have a camera. I'm working on other issues with the system, so we're making slow progress.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. I was just checking. Thank you.
Yeah.
James.
James Baker. I live in the 6th District. I have lived in Kansas City for about 8 years. My day job is with BNIM. Although I'm not a trained architect or designer, I kind of do a little bit of everything with the firm, research and writing. And then in kind of my civic life, I've been involved in a lot of the housing policy conversations and development outside of the city government as well. So I'm excited to be here and help out.
All right. And Tyler.
Hi, my name is Tyler Enders. I grew up in Kansas City on the Kansas side, and I am a small business owner. We own, with 2 other partners, a couple retail shops, most notably Made in KC, where we work with about 250 local designers, makers, artists at any given time.
Very good. And so when we see Paul, then we'll introduce him as he becomes available. So at this time, we have 7 total on our commission right now. Just a little about me real quick. So Colby Crowell, I'm a Northlander. I've been up here for over 25 years. I'm a civil engineer by training and trade. I've done that for over 25 years and recently joined a construction company a year ago called Kissick Construction. And we do mainly heavy civil type of work. I'm the business development director for them. So that's a little bit about me. I am the only returning commissioner from the previous commission. So again, I'm very glad that everybody's here, and I think this is a great group, and looking forward to this. So Joe, without any further ado, should we go ahead and get started with our meeting? And I'll kind of start with our script since we're all online. So we'll call this meeting to order. This is the City Planning Commission for Tuesday, May 19th. Want to welcome everybody and thank you for joining us this morning. We'd like to thank you for your patience during these unprecedented times. We are committed to the community engagement and keeping the development of our community moving forward during this time. With that in mind, we have chosen to hold our meeting by video conference. This is new for all of us. So I'd like to ask staff to provide some background on some rules and instructions for all of us to ensure minimal disruption and maximum clarity of the meeting. So at this time, Joe, if you don't mind, provide us with this type of information.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Crowell. So we're using Zoom, as you all know, as our video conferencing platform today. This platform, like all video conferencing platforms, is not specifically designed for public hearings, which are a unique kind of meeting. For this reason, some basic ground rules are necessary for all attendees. The first one is to unmute yourself to speak and mute yourself when you're done speaking. Anytime you leave yourself unmuted, it picks up background noise that can be distracting to all the participants. Number 2, if your device has a camera, you will appear on screen while you speak. If you would like to disable this, you can deselect the camera icon in the toolbar. Number 3, please use first and last names as your screen name in Zoom. If you're an attendee, if you're a panelist, you're good to go. That would be commissioner or staff. Your first and last names are already in there. But if you're an attendee, this would apply to you. Some of you may have an existing user account, for example, with a screen name that is not your first and last name. And we would just ask you that in the case of the public hearing, we need to know your first and last name. So please right click over your name and you should be able to rename yourself without leaving the meeting. Because we cannot rely on the same visual cues that we normally would, it's important for all participants to pay close attention to the order of the case and the agenda and be prepared to speak when you're called. The order of the meeting will occur as it does typically, which begins with me announcing the case, followed by a staff presentation, then an applicant presentation or response, followed by public testimony and an applicant response to that testimony if they desire. Then we will conclude each case with the commission discussion and action. When we call the case, we will announce the applicants by name so that they are prepared to participate following the staff presentation. We will also announce the names of any citizens who have raised their hands, and you will be called for public testimony. So any citizen who's interested in speaking on any case today, whether it's a to be continued case or case to be heard, please raise your hand when the case is called, and we will call you for public testimony. Chairman Crowell, that concludes the advice I have at this time.
Okay. Any questions from anybody on the commission at this time? Okay. So if not, then let's go ahead and begin with our consent docket. So I'll ask the staff to read each case on the consent docket. For those in attendance, if you wish to speak in a case, please raise your hand. So Joe, I think we're ready.
Sure. So we have 5 cases total on consent today, and 4 of them are proposed to be continued by the applicant. So I'm going to go ahead and start with those. We have 2 cases proposed to be continued off docket, so I'll read them together. These are cases C3 and C4. Case C3 is case number CPC 2019-00204, a request to approve a project plan to allow for the construction of a multi-tenant retail store on Green Hills Plaza Lot 4 of about 12,600 square feet in District B3-2/B4-1 on about 2 acres located at the southeast corner of Northeast Berry Road and Northeast Green Hills Road. And docket item C4, case number CPC 2020-00034, request to approve a project plan in District R0.5 to allow for an apartment complex on about 2 acres located at the northeast corner of East 87th Street and I-435, or about 1,000 feet north of East 87th Street. In both of these cases, the applicant is requesting these cases be continued off docket, and staff recommends without fee.
Okay, thank you, Joe. So we've got docket items C3 and C4 that are both recommended to be continued off docket. Are there anybody in the audience that would like to discuss these two cases for going off docket?
Mr. Chairman, no one is raising their hand.
Okay, with that, I'd like to take a motion.
Sorry, Chair Crow.
Yep.
I move for a motion for continuous off docket C3, docket number C3 and C4 without fee.
Okay, so I got a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second. This is Beasley.
Okay, thank you. So I've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this? Continue these two dockets off, or two cases off docket? Seeing none. So Lisa, if you don't mind taking a roll call, that would be great.
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Sadowski,
Aye.
Not bad for the first one.
Yeah,
All right.
okay, so passes for those two cases to be continued off at 7-0.
Right,
So
so
Jody-
we do have a couple more continuances on consent.
Okay,
The next one is docket item C1,
okay,
case number final plat 2020-00001, a request to approve a final plat for Hunters Glen West First Plat on about 25 acres located 150 feet north of the intersection of Northeast 116th Street and North Stark Avenue. The applicant is requesting this case be continued to August 18th. Staff is recommending without fee.
okay. So we've got a request to continue this case to August 18th. Is there anybody who'd like to discuss this continuance? Okay. And so Joe, do we have any public testimony to want to talk about this continuance?
No, we do not.
Okay, so I need a motion.
Chair Crowell, I motion that docket item C1 be continued to May 5th without fee.
Okay, I got a motion. Do I have a second?
What was the date on that again? I'm sorry.
It should be,
August 18th.
Yeah, it should be August. Was
Yeah.
that the,
August 18th, sorry.
thank you. No, just want to clarify.
Second.
okay, so I got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, so Lisa, if you don't mind taking roll.
and who was that seconded?
Bruce Allender.
Okay, I didn't see you. Okay, Commissioners Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
All right, the next continuance request is docket item C2. Case number final plat 2020-00010. A request to approve a final plat in District R7.5 to create 42 residential lots on one tract on 15 acres located at the southwest corner of Northeast 92nd and North Brighton Avenue. Applicant is requesting this case be continued to June 2nd, and staff recommends without fee.
Okay, so this was originally to be approved with conditions, but decided to continue to June 2nd.
Yeah, commissioners, this is one of those examples where after the staff report was published, the applicant requested to continue it. So the docket and staff report say approval, but the applicant is now requesting continuance.
Okay, so is there any out there that would, so any questions from the commissioners on this case?
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I think Bob Parks is online. I want to see if he wants it continued for 2 weeks or for a month, because he has to meet with staff to discuss his requested extension prior to CPC action.
Okay,
Bob, I just promoted you to a panelist. You should be able to speak and be seen at this point. Could you please respond to that?
Bob, can you, oh, he's on mute. Did you hear me, Bob? You got to unmute yourself. There you go.
All right.
Would you like continuance for 2 weeks or for a month? Introduce yourself first of all. So.
Okay. This is Robert Parks with Wise Kirk and Parks Engineers out of Independence on item C2. I would think 2 weeks should be enough. There really isn't a whole lot to discuss here.
Okay.
okay. So you're good with the June 2nd meeting?
Yes.
Okay. You with that, Olafu?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to, out there in the crowd, Joe, that would like to talk about this case?
No, no one has raised their hand.
Okay, so if you don't mind, I'd like to get a motion.
I have a quick question on something like this, and I don't mean to discuss it materially, but just so I can understand the process. As we look at these projects, so for me, the first time seeing something like this and similar to some others that we're going to review, if I'm trying to get a sense of the nature of the development, of course, you know, lot size could indicate something, but of course there could be like a really nice, I mean, there's a whole range of developments that I feel could fit based upon my ability to read the drawings. Typically when it's presented for the first time, will it be explained what the intended rents will be, what the intended sale prices would be, et cetera? Does that make any sense the way I'm asking that?
Staff won't present that information because it's not material to our recommendation. However, so we don't typically ask that, but you could ask the applicant those questions.
And typically that would happen when it's first presented.
Yeah, at this point in time, we're not getting into the merits of the case because it'll come back to us, assuming that we continue to June 2nd.
Sure.
So only thing we're talking about now is the actual continue the case.
Yep. Okay. Well then,
Yeah.
I can go ahead and motion to continue the case for what was it? Let's see, C2 to May 5th. Or well, now we're continuing to
June 2nd.
June 2nd. Thanks.
Yeah. Without a fee?
Without a fee.
Okay, so I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second. Hill.
Okay.
Sorry. Second.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, so Lisa, do you mind taking roll call?
Commissioners Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, so the motion passes, continue to June 2nd.
The last item on consent is the only one proposed to move forward today. It's docket item C5, case number CPC 2020-00056. Request to consider approval of a project plan in District R 1.5 to allow for a 48-unit multifamily development on about 2.5 acres located at the northwest corner of Northwest Shoal Creek Parkway and North Summit Street. Staff is recommending approval subject to conditions, and I believe the applicant is in agreement with those conditions. Patty Knoll is the planner and is available for questions.
Okay, is there any questions on docket item C5, commissioners to staff? Okay, seeing none. Joe, do we have anybody in the audience that would like to?
We have someone named Trinidad Molina who's raised their hand. Trinidad, I'm going to promote you to a panelist, so you should be able to speak and be seen momentarily. Whenever you're able, Trinidad, go ahead.
And
just wanted to ask, could you said the CPC number really fast here. What was that number again?
Case number 2020-00056.
Okay, thank you. Just double checking. That's all I got.
Okay, that's all you got. Okay. Anybody else, Joe?
There's no one else.
Okay. So with that, I'd like to have a motion.
Chair Crowell, I move that docket item C5 be approved subject to the conditions recommended by staff in the staff report.
Okay, so I've got a motion. I have a second.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, so Lisa, do you mind roll, please?
Commissioners Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Sadowski,
Aye.
Okay, looks like case C5 has been approved unanimously. Okay, Joe, so it looks like we're ready for our regular docket. And should we go ahead and start with our continuances? I think we have a couple.
Chair Crowell, it's Bruce Allender here. Just does this once we approve and it's and we've already voted, but does this come back to the commission, or does this now, once if all the conditions are met, does that then go to the city council?
No, so it actually moves on to the next phase. So the next phase of the project would be approval by council. And prior to getting there, the applicant has to work on the conditions that are listed under item 1. So you have 1, it's AB, whatever they may or may not be, and coordinate that with staff to actually present to the council. So then once it's in the council, it's a 3-step process usually. It gets introduced as step 1. Then step 2, it gets pushed over to the, what are they called, development committee now. And then back to council after that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, Bruce, are you referring to your consent docket item you just approved, or another?
Yeah, I just was wondering what the process was from here, whether that was coming back or not. That's all. Sorry.
No, it's okay. So for a project plan, which is what you just approved, you guys are the final approval. So the applicant, everything that Kobe said, with the exception of the council approval, is necessary. They have to satisfy the conditions of approval at the time of building permit review or prior to that.
Thank you.
All right. As Kobe mentioned, we have a number of continuances, a lot of continuances. So bear with me as it's going to take a while to get through all of them, but I'll take them up in order. We also do have one request for dismissal, Chairman Crowell, that I think it's at the very end of the docket. So I think once we get to that point after the continuances, we can just go ahead and do that one as well. Is that okay?
Yeah, that'd be great. I was thinking we ought to do that in case somebody online here that didn't know that was going to be dismissed, so they can go ahead and get on with their day.
Right. And we could actually take that up first if you wanted to, because of the number of continuances. I do know that there are some people on the line that are interested in the case to be dismissed. So it's
Okay.
it's up to you guys to, if you want to take that up first, I'm happy to call it first.
Let's go ahead and do that, Joe. That way, so I believe that's what case, docket 19?
Yes, docket 19.
Okay,
So docket 19 has 4 companion cases. They're all located at 8701 Troost Avenue. So I'm going to read them, starting with docket item 19.1, which is case number SUP 2019-00055, request to approve a special use permit for a college and university on about 26 acres located at 8701 Troost. Docket item 19.2, case number SUP 2020-00001, request to approve a special use permit for a school at 8701 Troost. Docket item 19.3, case number SUP 2020-00002, a request to approve a special use permit for group living at 8701 Troost. And docket item 19.4, case number SUP 2020-0003, a request to approve a special use permit for religious assembly at 8701 Troost. The applicant has requested that all 4 of these cases, including the group living or group home use, be dismissed.
okay. So is there any questions or from the commission on docket items 19.1, 0.2, 0.3, or 0.4 to dismiss all of those cases?
Yeah, could you just explain one more time dismissal and what that implicates in a case like this?
So dismissal is synonymous with withdrawing the request. Once a case is advertised by staff for a public hearing, it's on a docket until it's dismissed or you take some sort of action, whether you approve, deny, or dismiss a request. And in this case, the applicant has requested it be dismissed. So if you were to grant that today, the applicant would have to start over. They'd have to reapply in order for something to materialize or to happen.
And it would, in theory, it would have to be materially different, correct?
No, that's only if it gets to the decision-making body and they deny it.
Oh, okay.
And only on certain requests, I believe, as well. But on this
Okay.
one, since the request is dismissal, no, they could, there's nothing stopping them from reapplying tomorrow if they wanted to.
Okay. Any other questions from the commissioners? Okay. So Joe, let's go ahead and open it up to the public. Is there anybody raising their hand who would like to speak about the dismissal of these 4 cases?
Yeah, it looks like,
I would.
Mr. Chairman, that the first person who raised their hand was Jessica Piedra. Jessica, are you there?
Yes, and I guess I probably prematurely raised my hand. I'm happy to see that this proposal is being dismissed, where it's our understanding that perhaps it's being moved to a different part of the city. So that may be a different point in the agenda that I would like to speak to that. But we're, as immigration advocates, I'm an immigration attorney. You can hear me, yes? Or okay, great. I just want to be that we do not want to see the Vision Quest facility in our city. They've had, in addition to just being morally opposed to child detention, they've had a terrible reputation in other parts of the country in the way that they've treated the children that they've been in charge of. So I'm happy to see that dismissed off the docket today. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Crowell, the next person is Judith Ansel.
Okay.
Hello. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm with the Cross Border Network, which is a local solidarity and immigrant rights organization. And I also am happy that this is being dismissed, but we have been told that in fact there's an attempt to move the application to a different location. And I would like to know where that is on the docket. When it is approximately going to come up, if it's going to come up today, because our opposition is not against exactly where it is in the city. It's the whole idea that Kansas City would host a private jail for youth who ought to be with families.
Okay,
And
thank you,
so
Ms.
that's my
Hamel.
question. That's my question.
Yeah, it's the case we have before us today is that is the area at 87th and Troost. It's that former hospital there.
Right.
And the applicant has asked that to be dismissed, and this commission, we don't know, there's nothing on the docket that we know of at time, nor that's coming up. So I can answer that question for you.
Okay,
at
I'm
this
told
time.
it's item 16 and 19.
So
Oh, that's completely not related at all. There's no item on the docket related to this particular operator in any way.
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
okay. Anybody else, Joe, that would like to
Yeah.
speak about the dismissal of this case?
Angie Lyle. Go ahead, Angie.
Thank you, Chair Crowell. Thank
Yep.
you, Commission, for allowing me the opportunity. My name is Angie Lyle. I'm a community leader in the Waldo neighborhood, which is where this is being proposed. And while I think it's great that they're thinking about dismissing it, I would ask you to just deny this at this point, because they've tried to come back several times. It's very difficult for us to keep tracking these cases as they go through the system. And it's very clear in our neighborhood that we will not tolerate any sort of child detention facility. So no matter who brings it into this neighborhood, it will be adamantly opposed by most of the community. So my request is actually to please deny this applicant, make them go back to ground zero and start over. Thank you so much.
Joe, can you answer that by chance? Because it's a dismissal, but it's more about this exact property itself. We can't do a blank throughout the whole city.
We had
No.
the
So,
owner out to speak to us as a community. Actually last year, when he got the MPD, is this the same thing, Joseph? Where he received an MPD for that property, and we were never told that that was what he was intending to do with that property. So we would have never supported that in any case.
okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, we have Beto Lugo Martinez.
Okay, Mr. Martinez?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I'm having trouble with my internet. Yeah, so my name is Beto Lugo Martinez. I'm with the organization called Clean Air Now. We work in environmental justice communities on the front lines of environmental racism. I submitted a letter, in opposition of the detention center. We've also submitted a letter in opposition with community organizers and local pediatricians against this facility. So I'm really happy that the developer decided to withdraw their application. However, we continue to be on these calls and we continue to be on the Zoom meeting, even though we knew that it might be dismissed today, because we are very vigilant of our community, very vigilant of what's happening. And I think all my other colleagues that have commented on this are still, we get on these calls to make sure that it doesn't get slipped by us, right? Because we know how developing companies can come in, they might reapply tomorrow. So we're going to stay vigilant, and we support. I support all my other colleagues on this call, just in the opposition of this. So that's all. That's all I have right now. And I wish that if they do reapply, that you, I don't know if you guys put this in the press or anything. Like someone applied. I know some other cities put that information right away where we can see if
Sure.
that happens.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Martinez.
Thank you.
We have Lauren Higgins.
Okay. Good morning, Ms. Higgins.
Good morning. I work with the Ewing Marion Coffin Foundation. I care a lot about my community, and I'm also just here to speak on behalf of saying that I am thankful that the detention center is currently changing the game right now, but we are, like he said, vigilant about wanting to make sure that this doesn't happen in Kansas City. Even if it moves, it's not the right legacy for Kansas City. And so we'll be watching what happens and looking forward to speaking here again if necessary.
Okay, thank you.
It looks like there is someone named Sam. Sam, please share your first and last name and go ahead.
Hi, my name is Sam Mungai, and I am with ARKC, Advocates for Immigrant Rights and Reconciliation, as well as the DDLN, Deportation Defense League Network. We do a lot of advocating for immigrants, and the last thing that anyone needs to see, whether they're pro-immigrants or not, is children being mistreated. That wouldn't be humane, and it's just something that would not be okay with anybody that's a human and has a human heart and that is caring. So it's good to see that it was dismissed. Whoever pulled out, the decision is the fact that this company does not need to have, any standing here. And if it is possible for them to have basically a hold, whether it's city, I don't know, that was mentioned earlier that maybe that's not something that it can be done to stop them, but if there's enough noise being made by people advocating for other people saying that this is a problem, then I feel like it should be heard, because when it comes to kids, it's our job to protect for them and to advocate for them as well.
Yep. Thank you, Sam.
No problem.
Mr. Chair, we have a few more. There's Carla Juarez. Carla, go ahead.
Okay. And just before get on the next folks that want to speak, I really just want to make it clear this case is before us to be dismissed, and I understand this is a case that's got a lot of people by the heartstrings, and I really want to talk about the dismissal of this actual case. And then as we get through public testimony, Joe, let's do a summary of, so if something like this were to come back, what is that process and how can these folks be notified, if you don't mind? And Sarah, did you have something you might want to say?
I just want to say that, to reiterate what the chairman said, we're really just dismissing this case. We cannot prejudge what might happen in the future. We have to address cases as they come to us. So anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Carla, go ahead.
Hi, well, thank you for letting us address this docket item. I do want to say first and foremost, my name is Carla Juarez, and I am from Advocate for Immigrant Rights and Reconciliation, and also with More Squared, which is a Metro Organization for Racial and Economic Equity. Over 7,000 signatures signed a petition against Vision Quest, so I'm very happy to see that they be dismissed, and I highly recommend that you all dismiss this and make them start over, because we will be watching. We won't let a child detention center be in Kansas City. So that's all I have to say about that.
Okay, thank you, Carla.
Chairman Crowell, there is Claire Shaw.
Hi, yes, I'm Claire Shaw. I'm an immigration attorney here in Kansas City that represents unaccompanied minors in immigration court. And my objection to this proposal that thankfully is being dismissed is Vision Quest itself is a for-profit entity, and for-profit detention of children is wrought with abuse because the best interest of the children is not what's at heart. And so I think our concern today is that the proposal is being trying to slip in under a different agenda number, that perhaps number 16 is somehow a new proposal for a child detention center. And so if you could just confirm that that's not the case, that Vision Quest isn't working now with a different developer and moving the site to a different location. I think that would relieve our concerns.
I can't tell you whether they're working with someone else or not, because I don't know, but I can assure you that nothing on the docket today is related to Vision Quest in any way. This commission sees lots of group living uses, which is what staff has determined this use is in the zoning code. And there's a lot of group living uses throughout the city, and it varies dramatically between what type of person lives in those group living scenarios. So you see a group living use in docket item 16, but it's completely unrelated. It's not operated by the same operator.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, there is someone named Rick Behrens. I'm not sure if he's rose his hand to speak on this or if he's an applicant for another case. Rick, please confirm.
Okay.
Rick, are you there? Can you unmute yourself and confirm whether you'd like to speak on this case? He's not unmuting. I don't see any. Oh wait, I'm sorry. There's one other person. Dioselin T. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, my name is Dioselin Todd, and I'm a community member here in the KC metro area. I work in Kansas City, Missouri, and volunteer with, and also volunteer with Air and More Square. I'm very thankful for you guys giving us the opportunity to speak today and continue to hear our comments. And at the same time, I'm very happy to see that the case has been dismissed. I echo everything that my friends and colleagues have said, where we are not happy with the detention center, and we hope that you guys see our commitment and our vigilance, that we are going to continue to keep tabs on this, and we're hoping that the case 16, docket 16, and docket 19 do not go through. So thank you for all of that.
Okay, thank you.
Joe, there are a couple more people that I had promoted. I know Trinidad Molina has been patiently waiting for a while.
Okay, go ahead, Trinidad.
I want to make one comment, folks. We're talking about docket item 19 right now. We can't be talking about other cases. We can't talk about any other docket item other than 19 and the fact that it's being dismissed, and that's it.
Go ahead, Trinidad.
Okay, I'll just make it quick. You obviously already know why we're here and why we're concerned and everything. So thank you for helping see letting us know that this item was dismissed earlier. We will want to come back. It might be a false alarm, but just in case, we do want to ask a few questions as it comes back to 0068, item 16 on the Renaissance Group.
Okay, you'll have that opportunity.
Yes, you'll have the opportunity when that case is called.
All right, Jamie, who is next?
I believe we also have, is Franklin Slegar to testify on this case?
Not on this joint
Okay,
item 19, I think you said no.
okay. I believe that is it. If anyone else would like to speak on this particular case regarding 8701 shares, please raise your hand because I think I got everyone.
Bear with us, Mr. Chair. A bunch of people raised their hand at once initially, so we got a little overwhelmed.
I understand.
I don't see anyone else raising their hand, so I think we can go ahead and move forward.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to close public testimony. So after testimony, is there anything the commissioners have any questions on?
Chair,
And this again is about the dismissal itself.
Chair Crowell,
Yes.
Commissioner Hill, I just have just a clarification question.
Mhm.
Can you provide, what's the difference between the denial and a dismissal? Just so that I understand.
I'll let Joe answer that. He can say it more eloquently than I can.
I'm not sure about that because dismissal just means that the applicant is, when the applicant files for something, they're either filing for approval. In this case, that's what this applicant initially did. And then that's their request, or they're requesting dismissal. So when they're requesting approval, you can approve it, you can deny it, you can dismiss it, you can continue it. In this case, since it's just a dismissal request coming from the applicant, I think, Sarah, jump in if I'm misstating anything here, but I really think that's all you can do. I guess you could continue it, but the difference between the two is just that it's not, you're not making a decision one way or the other, up or down. You're just removing it from your docket. It's essentially withdrawing the request in a way that it goes through you guys to withdraw it because it's already been docketed on your agenda. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's the best way of explaining it. You're not denying it. And even if you did recommend denial of something, they could still come back and reapply. So it's not, it doesn't provide extra protection to the public or anything to deny it.
doesn't. And, you know, if the applicant had asked to withdraw before the docket had been published, it wouldn't have even appeared on the docket. The only reason it's here is because it had already been docketed previously. So you'd have to take some sort of action to remove it from the docket. But it's true. I mean, even if the recommendation was denial, they could still, they can always still reapply.
And is there typically a fee associated with dismissing?
No, there is not, because when we assess a fee on continuances, it's due to whether we need to re-notify or whether staff has done substantial amount of work. And in this case, since when you dismiss a request, they have to reapply, we collect a fee at that time. So there's no fee assessed at this time.
And can you confirm that this location was the Vision Quest location? Because I mean, we're coming straight into like a very, I mean, it's dismissal, right? But it's still like, it'd be good to know for the future, coming in kind of blind to this. Or is that allowed? Or
I do believe that they were one of the tenants that, as you might recall, there was 4 different requests, and I do believe that they were the potential group living tenant. Yes.
Motion to, or I move to dismiss 19.1 through 19.4.
Okay, so
Chairman
got a
Crowell,
motion to dismiss.
I've just got a question before we do that.
Okay, let me see if we got a second, and then we'll do discussion after that, if that's okay.
Cool.
Second, Hill.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this dismissal of docket items 19, 1, 2, 3, and 4? Go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah, I'm just, just on the description of what was on the report, there was nothing to do with child retention, detention, and so forth. So just a question to staff, or maybe the chair, is how do we know what the use of these properties are going to be, apart from public testimony? Because I wouldn't have picked that up through the briefing document.
Well, there's always, I can kind of try to answer that. There's always what the public perceives an operator or a tenant or a use to be, and then there's the definition in the zoning and development code. And so when we meet with applicants, every single day, whether it's over the phone or email or face-to-face, staff is assessing a proposed use or business and determining what that use is under our zoning and development code. And so what you see here for these 4 requests are, they're requesting 4 different uses as defined in the zoning and development code. Whether someone calls a group living use a detention center or something else is their terminology, but that's what it is under our zoning and development code according to our staff's.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
so Joe, this is Forrest Thing. Just to clarify what you just said about us having the 4 different cases, and all of them to me are reading the same. So you're saying for the 4 different possibilities that are listed, they then needed to file for 4 different special permits for them to decide which one they're going to actually be doing?
Right. I realize the way that the descriptions are written is a bit confusing because each of those 4 uses requires its own special use permit.
Okay.
So ideally what staff would have done when we initially noticed on these would be to have said, in the case of 19.1 would be to have written it to be just for a college or university and not the other 3.
Okay.
But that's how they were advertised. And it's, in a sense, it's kind of over advertising because we're talking about all 4 in each request. So it's not a problem that it's written that way. It's just a bit confusing.
Okay. Thank you.
I had one quick additional question on this. So we would be in theory, right? We would be approving these uses based on the plan that they submitted, but there's nothing in our power for them to just change operators 15 days, or I'm thinking about the McGonagall's example where they had submitted a plan, it was approved, right? and then they sold it to a different operator under the same plan, correct? So we're stuck with what's presented today and not necessarily predicting the future of a property.
Right. A good example is if you were to proceed with the college or university use today, and let's say the property owner disclosed that the college would be KU, and then tomorrow it becomes MU, which I know people would have opinions about. There's nothing you can do about it. You've approved a college or university use on this property. It doesn't matter who the actual operator or tenant is. It's the use.
Thank you.
I have one more question. So Joseph or Sarah or anyone, has the commission ever used language like when we approve with conditions that say like that's prescriptive, like we approve for it to be used, let's just say as a college or a university, but it shall not be used as a child detention center without coming back to seek approval for that? You know, like have we ever created those type of conditions?
I don't recall that we've ever done that.
But are we allowed to, if this pops up, you know, with another developer to sneak in, or are we able? I mean, I think part of my concern is that we didn't get a full plan. And so I know because this is dismissed. So if like any docket number, let's just say the one that has come up that people believe we don't have a full plan on that because it's being continued, I'm sure we will and would have testimony from staff, but I'm just trying to figure out what's within our scope to do as commissioners to ensure that we're actually approving the use, that it's actually going to be used for the condition we approve.
I just want to, first of all, I want to make sure everyone understands there was an established quorum under this case previously. So even if you wanted to take action on it, you can't today. There's no choice but to dismiss this. So so that's my first issue. To answer your question, Commissioner Hill, if you approve the university use, that's the only use that's allowed. So it's tied to the use, as Joe said, not to a particular owner, but to the use. So they could never, the only use that would be allowed would be a university if that were the use that was approved. This particular applicant came to us and said, these are 4 potential uses that we're considering. We don't know which one that we're going to pursue yet. We're talking to tenants, but we're not sure. So we want to get all 4 uses approved. The commission at the time said, no, we're not going to approve all of these uses. You need to come back with something more specific. So that's kind of where it was. Now, because we took testimony and there were folks that came and testified about the potential group living use portion of the application, which was the one that persons were associating with potential housing for a facility for unaccompanied minor children, refugee children, that was discussed. But because a quorum was established, you wouldn't be allowed to make a decision on this, even if the public is asking you to do that. They would have to start over with a brand new application to reestablish a quorum under your rules. So that's really for everybody who's interested in the case. I completely understand that public interest in this was very significant, but this commission today can only do one thing. The only thing they can do under their rules is dismiss this application. So.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that.
Can I make one more comment?
Sure.
Or question. So just trying to understand how the process would work moving forward if they did in fact take the advice of the last commission and decide to narrow down to one use and be more specific, and let's say that is group living, would we be provided with additional information in the application that would allow us to understand the nuance between what they mean by group living?
Yeah. So you'll notice that a lot of cases, whenever we prepare the docket right before we finish out our staff reports. So just for some background for the whole commission, because I think a lot of your questions have to do with this issue. At the time we finalize our docket and staff reports, if we know a case is going to be continued or dismissed at the applicant's request, we don't put all the plans and all the supporting documentation. And in this case of dismissal, there's a lot of letters in opposition we received because that's not material to the request before you. The request before you is to either continue it or dismiss it. That's what the applicant is requesting. So it would bog down the docket, make it really long and be distracting, and it's not material to the request before you. So that information is not included. But it will be, if it ever, any case continued, when it comes back up for action, it will be included.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. I believe we're ready to go ahead with the vote. So Lisa, if you mind taking roll call on the dismissal of these cases.
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Orstein, you might be muted on your phone or whatever you're on.
Okay, I didn't want to come off. Aye.
Corral,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
And
Okay,
Lisa, I think you, sorry,
Go ahead.
Kobe. Lisa, I think you had asked, it was Enders who motioned and Hill who seconded
Yes.
that motion. Okay.
Yeah, my I can hear you, but I'm looking on my video is delayed. I'm watching
Okay.
it on YouTube at the same time, so
Gotcha. Do we
Thank
look good?
yes.
Okay. All right, so the motion carries that docket items 19.1 through 19.4 are dismissed. And I really appreciate everybody's comments and questions on that. A great learning experience. So if you don't mind, Joe, let's go back to our cases to be continued for the day.
All right. So we'll start with docket item 1, which is case number CPC 2020-00007. It's a discussion item regarding the Urban Forest Master Plan presentation by Kristen Riot of Bridging the Gap, and to update the commission on potential code revision related to tree preservation. The staff for this is Patty Knoll, but we are requesting continuance of this to June 16th without fee. I'm not sure if Patty's on to provide any background for y'all. I believe she is, if you have
Yes,
any
I'm here.
questions. Yep.
I'm here.
Okay, so it's been recommended that docket item number 1 be continued to June 6th. Any questions from the commission?
Move to continue docket item 1 to June 16th.
Okay, I still have to check and see if there's anybody from the public. So,
Right.
but thank you. Is there anybody from the public willing to talk about the continuance of docket item 1?
Mr. Chairman, no one is raising their hand.
Okay, so now I'm ready for a motion. Thank you.
Move to continue docket item 1 to June 16th.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, looks like I've got a motion and a second to continue docket item number 1 to June 16th without a, so Lisa, if you don't mind taking roll call.
Okay, I'm ready. Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Corral,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
All right, Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
Next docket item is docket item 2, and there are 2 companion cases here. I realize the agenda says approval with conditions and you have a staff report with materials, but after that was published, the applicant has submitted a request for continuance. I'm going to go ahead and read them, starting with 2.1. Case number CPC 2019-00201. Request to approve an amendment to the KCI area plan to change the recommended land use from residential low, residential medium, and commercial to mixed-use community on about 500 acres located along Northwest Tiffany Springs Road between Line Creek Parkway and North Platte Purchase Drive. Docket item 2.2, case number CPC 2019-00202, a request to rezone from District B2-2, AG-R, R-6, and R-7.5 to District MPD Master Plan Development. which will also serve as a preliminary development plan and a preliminary plat for the Twin Creeks Village, which would allow for a mixture of commercial, recreational, educational, civic, and residential uses on about 500 acres located north of Missouri Highway 152 between Line Creek Parkway and Platte Purchase Drive. The applicant is requesting both of these cases be continued to June 2nd, and staff recommends without fee.
Okay. So are there any questions from the commission on docket items 2.1, 2.2 to continue both cases to June 2nd?
Chairman Crowell, this is Beasley. I have a question. If I have questions on this and I know that I am not going to be able to meet the June 2nd meeting of the commission, how do I voice those questions to staff or what?
I think that would be the best place through staff, or if you want to forward them to me, that would be fine as well.
Okay.
I mean, you can always, one thing you could do when you know your guys are getting a continuance request to a date certain like this one, if you know you're not going to be available for that hearing, you can share just as you've done, Commissioner Beasley, with the commission, and the commission can decide on a different date if you wanted, if they thought it was really important for you to be there. But it's really hard to field questions and answer them outside of the public hearing. You really shouldn't do that. So if you have questions for us that are substantive in nature on the project, we either need to continue it to the date you're available, or you forego being able to ask those questions early.
Okay.
And that last part, you kind of broke up on that last part.
If we continue it to June 2nd and you're not available that date, then unfortunately there's not really a way to answer to answer your questions.
Okay.
I had a quick question. If the planning report for this docket item comes back, well, just in theory for all of them, and there's changes to it, well, are those going to be clearly laid out to what's been changed since the last report?
We can do that. That's kind of input we appreciate from the commission. What's helpful. You got a full report, a full package of materials with this one, and if you want us to point out anything that changes in that report between now and when you see this again, we can do that. And that's what I'm seeing people's heads nodding, so we'll do that.
It's a pretty substantial report, so it would be nice to see what changes as it goes along, if it does change at all.
We'll do it.
Okay. All right.
I had a question.
Go ahead.
I had a question about continuances. Are we able to understand what triggered continuances in this case?
Yeah. So in this case, the applicant had questions regarding some of the conditions from some of our reviewers. I don't believe they had to do with any of our conditions from planning staff, but they wanted the opportunity to reach out to that department and that individual reviewer to discuss them first.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission? Okay, so Zach, being staff, or is there comments you'd like to make on this as well?
No, I think Jill pretty much wrapped it up. We just, part of the continuance also is just that it's anticipated that this could potentially be a long case when it is heard. And so we just were trying to make it as efficient as possible in trying to clean up the conditions before it gets to you all.
Okay. All right, so now I'm going to open it up for public testimony. Is anybody out there that would like to speak on the actual continuance of docket items 2.1 and 2.2?
If you would like to speak, please raise your hand in the Zoom toolbar. Mr. Chairman, I don't see anyone raising their hand.
Okay, so we'll close public testimony and take a motion on the continuance of two cases.
Move to continue 2.1 and 2.2. And then I guess actually, I'm going to retract that. Forrestine, when would you like to be present for when this is continued?
I would like to, but I don't want to slow up any process, so he still would have a quorum. I think part of my questions staff can just clarify for me. It's not something I think that would actually hold up the process.
Okay. Good to know. All right,
Mr.
well then,
Mr. Chairman, the applicant has raised their hand. I don't know if they'd probably like to speak depending on what the motion is.
Okay. That'll be fine.
Okay. Tyler, I think you can go ahead with your motion.
great, okay. Motion to continue 2.1 and 2.2 to June 5th, or wait, what date are we continuing to?
Second.
Second, June 2nd, thank you.
Is that with or without a fee?
Without a fee.
Okay, so I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, so Lisa, if you don't mind taking roll call?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, so it looks like the motion carries to continue the item 2.1 and 2.2 to June 2nd.
Right, the next docket item is docket item 3. There are 2 companion cases. I'll start with 3.1, which is case number CPC 2019-00141. A request to approve a rezoning from District R2.5 to District B2-1 to allow, in order to allow for the continued operation of an existing auto repair shop on about a half an acre located at 5005 Swope Parkway, or generally located on the east side of Swope Parkway between Blue Parkway and East 51st Street. Docket item 3.2, case number SUP 2020-00007. Request to approve a special use permit for an automotive use on about 0.65 acres at the same location. The applicant is requesting both of these cases be continued to June 16th, and staff recommends without fee.
Okay, so it's been recommended that we continue docket items 0.1 and 3.2 to the June 16th meeting. Are there any questions from the commissioners?
Yes, I have a question. I think in
Okay.
the report, it said that it required public engagement, but it also said that this parcel is not within any defined neighborhood or recorded neighborhood. So my question was, how will they go about? Are they given some direction on how to go about engaging the community so that we can get the report?
Yeah, so because of this request, it's a rezoning and a special use permit. Both of those types of applications are subject to the public engagement ordinance that was passed last summer. And that ordinance lays out how to do that if there is, whether there is an active neighborhood association or is not. And if there is not, the applicant simply has to host the meeting themselves. If there is a neighborhood association, they have to work with that neighborhood association first to determine whether the neighborhood association will host it or whether the applicant will. So in this case, the applicant has to do that. And I believe, Jamie, are you on? Can you clarify if that's the basis for the continuance?
Yes, that's correct. They really need to, they have not done their public engagement or really been responsive at this time. So we have communication out with them about completing that on a certain deadline by the meeting to which is being continued. And they have been told that staff will be recommending denial if that's not the case. If they have not completed it by that time.
And staff's recommendation is continuance with fee, right? Correct?
That's correct. This case has been dragging on for quite some time. They applied, I want to say in September, October of last year, maybe before.
Jamie, can I ask you just a follow-up question? Sure. This is probably like common knowledge to most, but I remember that used to be like an old fire station. So when it transitioned and they opened up their business, did it not require them to adjust the zoning?
That's
did.
I'm sorry, I'm going to
Joe,
jump
go
in
ahead.
here now because I just want to avoid substantive discussion.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll get into that when this comes back before you.
Fair, thank you.
Yep, so we're not getting into the merit of the case yet. We're just talking about the actual continuance of this particular case. So at this time, is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on the continuance of this case?
Mr. Chair, I don't see anyone who's raised their hand.
This is
Okay.
Forrest Ding. I have a quick question regarding, I have a question as to how long can a case be continued? So we're saying that we've given them to June 16th to do their due diligence and public engagement. And it was stated that we thought they started this process back in September or October of 2019. So how long do we let a project continue before we take next steps to, say, dismiss it?
That's a very good question. Your rules do not establish a limit on the number of continuances, so you could grant them over and over and over and over again. So that's something that we can talk about. Maybe we can have an agenda item about your rules at some point, and we can talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they
and
could technically go a year and a half and still not get everything in place. It could take them that long.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and I can tell you, in my opinion, that I don't want to see them drag out that many times. If they come back for continuance after continuance, there's a point, by the second time you say, look, we've got to move on with this project, or, either hear the project or let's go ahead and dismiss it. And it sounds like that may be the case, that when they come back on June 16th, that if they're not ready to present their case, that it's going to be recommended to dismiss.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So since we didn't have anybody from the public raise their hand, I'm ready for a motion on docket items 3.1 and 3.2.
Chairman Crowell, I move that docket number 3.1 and 3.2 be continued until June 16th without a fee.
Okay. Is that correct, Joe? No fee, or do we need a fee on that?
No fee.
No fee. Okay. So we got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. So I got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay. So Lisa, if you don't mind, take roll call.
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay. So it looks like the motion carries unanimously to continue docket items 3.1 and 3.2 to the June 16th meeting.
All right, Mr. Chair, the next docket item is docket item 4, case number CPC 2019-00242. Request to approve a rezoning from District R2.5 to B4-1 on about half an acre located at 4336 Woodland Avenue, which is located at the northwest corner of East 44th Street and Woodland Avenue. The applicant is requesting this case be continued to June 2nd, and staff recommends without fee.
Okay. Any questions from the commissioners on the continuance of docket item number 4?
So again, do we know why they want it continued?
I'm happy to answer that. Again, this is an issue with the public engagement requirements. They have not met those requirements. I do understand that we put in provisions for things that are kind of outside our control during the stay-at-home order. There are alternative methods for them to complete the engagement. That hasn't been done in this case. So we are awaiting that. And again, they've received a deadline from staff. So hopefully that gets done quickly.
Okay, thank you.
That is the basis for a number of the continuances, just so everyone knows. The public engagement ordinance still applies, even though the council did modify it shortly after the mayor issued the first emergency order dual public engagement. But it can be really difficult to engage with the general public in a neighborhood meeting format. So a number of our applicants have had a difficult time getting that set up and scheduled, and that's partly why you see so many requests today.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions by the commission? So opening it up for public testimony, do we see anybody that has raised their hand to speak about continuance of docket item number 4?
Mr. Chair, I don't see anyone who's raised their hand.
Okay, so at this time, I'd like to get a motion to continue docket item number 4.
Chair Crow, I move that docket item 4 be continued to June 2nd without fee.
Okay, so I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second. Other discussion? Okay, Lisa, do you mind taking roll call, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
So it looks like the motion carries unanimously to continue docket item 4 to the June 2nd meeting.
All right, the next item is docket item 5, case number CPC 2020-00063, a request to approve a rezoning from District R-2.5 to R-1.5 in order to construct a duplex on about a quarter of an acre located at 3408 Charlotte. The applicant is requesting continuance to June 16th, and staff recommends without fee.
Okay, are there any questions from the commissioners on docket item number 5 to continue it to June 16th?
I have a question. This is Hill. When this would come before us for a vote, would or can we request a copy of like the code violations? I know it said in the staff report that there were, so I just want to make sure we're not, granting someone else that hasn't been a good property owner.
Yes, we can make sure we provide you with more detail on that.
And it should be noted, this case is related to several other cases that will likely be before you on the same date. So we'll make sure that there's a comprehensive understanding of the issues at hand.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, is there anybody out in the audience that has raised their hand to talk about the continuance of docket item number 5?
Mr. Chair, I don't see anyone who has raised their hand.
Okay, so at this time, I'd like to take a motion for continuance of docket item number 5.
Mr. Chair, I move that docket number 5 be continued until June 16th, and it was without fee.
Without a fee.
Yep.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second, Ms. Beasley.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Lisa, do you mind taking roll call?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, it looks like the docket item 5 has been continued unanimously to June 16th meeting.
Mr. Chair, the next case is docket item 6, case number CPC 2020-00077, amending Chapter 88, the Zoning and Development Code, specifically Section 88-445-11-B, to provide that council-approved sign plans may be approved for any property zoned B3, B4, D, UR, M, MPD, SC, or KCIA, except that the minimum acreage requirement shall not apply to any property along an interstate highway and within 1 mile of a sports complex stadium. Staff is recommending this case be continued to June 16th and without fee. And the reason for this continuance, Jamie, jump in if this, I believe it's because we still need to discuss this with KCNAC.
That's correct. Yeah, we have not had an opportunity to meet with that organization, which we need to do prior to this being heard.
Jamie, do you mind reminding us what KCNAC is?
Sure. It's the Kansas City Area Neighborhoods Coalition. It's a group of representatives from different neighborhoods throughout the city who are kind of in an advisory role and active in the community to help us when we bring code amendments forward. We do take most of them before them for their review and input to kind of help us make sure that what we're proposing is in line with the goals, the overall goals of different neighborhoods throughout the city. And Joe, feel free to add more to that. I've only met with them a handful of times. So
Yeah, Kansas City Neighborhood Advisory Council. and
Advisory Council. I'm sorry. I always get that wrong. My mistake. I apologize.
And code amendments apply citywide. So even though this one seems targeted just by the description, it does affect, the code applies to the whole city. So the best way of public engagement is through KCNAC rather than an individual neighborhood, because it tends to affect every neighborhood or multiple neighborhoods. So that's a matter of our internal practices to work with KCNAC on text amendments that have substance to them or a policy change. If we're just changing the spelling of something in the code, we don't tend to run that through KCNAC.
Okay, thank you, Jamie and Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Any other questions from the commission?
Is there any precedent when, I realize this isn't the consent agenda and that the public can weigh in on these, in a unique circumstance such as this, where we have a number of cases that are being continued, is there any precedent to vote on them at once, to be continued at once?
Unfortunately,
We've never
no,
done that.
because, yeah, well, each case is handled a little bit differently, and each case has a different reason why it's being continued and the date of which it's continued. So in my opinion, I think we need to take each one separately, just so in case there's some issue that comes up with the actual continuance of the case itself.
Sounds good.
I have a question about just generally what triggers zoning amendments. And I know we might not be able to get into specifics on this particular one, but I'd like to kind of understand when these come up on the docket and why.
Well, sometimes they're initiated, so they can be initiated by staff or the council, and this one was initiated by city council. So it just runs on its course once it's initiated or applied for.
Okay, any other questions from the commission? All right, so Joe, has anybody raised their hand from the audience?
No, Mr. Chair, no one's raised their hand.
Okay, so at this time, I'd like to get a motion for docket item number 6 to continue to June 16th.
Chair Crowell.
Oh, go ahead, Ashley.
Chair Crowell, I move that docket item 6 to be continued till June 16th without fee.
Okay, so I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
His second.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion to continue this case to June 16th? Seeing none, Lisa, do you mind taking roll call?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, so it looks like the docket item 6 has been continued unanimously.
Right, Mr. Chair, the next case is docket item 7, case number CPC 2020-00064. Request to approve a development plan for ground floor neighborhood serving retail on about an acre located at 1023 East Missouri Avenue, or generally located at the southwest corner of East Missouri Avenue and Gillis Street. Applicant is requesting continuance to June 2nd, and staff recommends without fee.
Okay. So docket item 7 has been recommended to be continued to June 2nd. Is there any questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none. Joe, has anybody raised their hand to talk about the continuance of this case?
No.
Okay, so with that, if I can get a motion for continuance of docket item 7.
Chair Crowell, I move that docket item number 7 be continued to June 2nd without a fee.
Okay, so I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Lisa, do you mind taking roll call?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, so it looks like docket item 7 is continued to June 2nd unanimously.
All right, the next one is docket item 8. We have 3 companion cases here, starting with 8.1, case number CPC 2020-00067. Request to approve a development plan for a major amendment to a previously approved development plan known as the Seabiscuit Development to allow a park and ride facility, hotels, office, and commercial uses on about 87 acres located at the northwest corner of Northwest Cookingham and North Ambassador Drive. Docket item 8.2, case number CPC 2020-00065. Request to approve a rezoning from District AG-R and B3-3 to District B3-3 on about 87 acres at the same location. And docket item 8.3, case number CPC 2020-00066. A request to approve a council-approved sign plan for 3 oversized monument signs at the same location. The applicant is requesting continuance to June 16th without fee, and staff recommends without fee. We also have one modification. We want to point out that a typo in the staff report. It referenced that public engagement has not occurred yet, but they have met the requirements of the public engagement. That is not the basis for this continuance.
Okay, so it's been suggested we continue docket items 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3 to June 16th. Are there any questions from the commissioners? Okay, seeing Joe, do we have anybody that's raised their hand about this continuance of these 3 companion cases?
Trinidad Molina has raised his hand or her hand. I'm not sure. Trinidad,
Okay.
I promoted you to a panelist. Would you like to speak?
Thank you. Did you say 0068? Did I hear that right?
No.
6.7, 6.5, and 6.6.
Okay, my apologies.
That's it, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so with that, looking for a motion regarding docket items 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3 for continuance.
Move to continue docket items 8.1 through 8.3 to June 16th without fee.
Okay, I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second, this is Beasley.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Lisa, do you mind taking roll call, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Sadowski,
Aye.
So it looks like the motion carries to continue docket items 8.1, and 8.3 to June 16th meeting.
All right, the next item is docket item 9, and we have 2 companion cases here. 9.1 is case number CPC 2020-00053. Request to approve a rezoning from District R-80 to District R-10 on about 22 acres located on the north side of Northeast 104th Street between Highway A on the east and North Willow Avenue on the west. And docket item 9.2, case number CPC 2020-00054. Request to approve a preliminary plat in District R-10 to create 18 residential lots in one tract on 22 acres at the same location. The applicant is requesting these 2 cases be continued to June 2nd, and staff recommends without fee.
Okay, so it's been recommended by staff to continue docket items 9.1 and 9.2 to June 2nd. Are there any questions from the commissioners? Okay, seeing none. Joe, has there been anybody raise their hand? Any of the participants?
Franklin Sligar has raised his hand. I'm going to promote him to a panelist. Go ahead, Franklin.
Yes, good morning, Chair Crowell and commissioners. Are you hearing me okay?
Yes.
Hold on. Okay, you should have a picture of me now too. Hi, my name's Frank Sliger, and I was requested by the board of Roosterville Airport to appear regarding this docket item. This subdivision lies on the.
Okay, Mr.
Yes.
Slager, just to kind of interrupt here for a second. We're only taking testimony about the actual continuance of this case. We're looking to continue it to June 2nd. And so we don't want to get into any merits of the case at this point in time. We'd want to postpone that until the next meeting.
Okay,
So-
I do understand that. I just wanted to raise the commission's understanding that this particular piece of property is south of the boundary of Roosterville Airport. And there are certain zoning requirements, not necessarily zoning requirements, but considerations relative to clear flight paths and so forth. The airport's been there 50 years, and also in regard to noise. So we will try and attend the meetings in the future.
That'd be great. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if he can reach out to me,
Okay.
if he has my contact, he should be able to get additional information, and I'll forward him to the aviation reviewer. So
Okay.
that he can talk to our aviation department, because aviation is one of the reviewing bodies for this case too.
Okay.
Did
you hear
great. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And I provided on my registration my address and my email address. Can you forward that information via that, what I provided for this meeting?
Yes,
Will do.
Ken.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Olafu. Joe, is there anybody else that's raised their hand?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So with that, I'll take a motion for docket items 9.1 and 9.2.
Chair Crowell, I move that docket item 9.1 and 9.2 be continued until June 2nd without fee.
Okay, so I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion of the continuance of docket items 9.1 and 9.2 to June 2nd? Seeing none, Lisa, do you mind taking roll call, please?
Yep, I'm ready. Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
So the motion carries to continue docket items 9.1 and 9.2 to the June 2nd meeting.
The next item is docket item 10 with two companion cases, starting with 10.1. Case number CPC 2020-00018. Request to approve a preliminary plat for the Second and Delaware project on about 5 acres located north of the intersection of West 2nd and Delaware Street. And docket item 10.2, case number final plat 2020-00004. Request to approve a final plat for the Second and Delaware project at the same location. The applicant is requesting these cases be continued to June 2nd, and staff recommends without fee.
Okay, so it's been recommended by staff to continue docket items 10.1 and 10.2 to the June 2nd meeting without a fee. Any questions from the commissioners?
This might be a dumb question, but these projects are in construction currently, right? And so just the process, you can get a plat in the middle of construction or after construction, or I guess I'm unsure about just for my education.
Yeah, so these are plats, and plats are allowed to follow construction. So in other words, construction can start first without a plat being approved. They're generally required to be approved and recorded at the county recorder's office prior to a certificate of occupancy being issued on any building, but they're allowed to proceed separately from the development plan.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Any other questions from the commission? Okay, so Joe, do we have anybody from the public that has raised their hand about the continuance of docket item 10.1 or 2?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, seeing no questions from anybody listening into our meeting, so I'm looking for a motion on these two items.
Chair Crowell, I move that docket item 10.1 and 10.2 have a continuance till June 2nd without fee.
Okay, so I got a motion. Do I have a?
Beasley, second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second to continue docket items 10.1 and 10.2 to June 2nd. Any other discussion? Okay, Lisa, do you mind taking roll call, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, so motion carries unanimously on continuing docket items 10.1 and 10.2 to the June 2nd meeting.
All right, Mr. Chair, the next case is docket item 11, case number CPC 2020-00060. Request to approve a rezoning from District UR Urban Redevelopment to District UR for the purpose of amending the existing UR development plan to allow for a multifamily development within parcel D of the development, which is located on about 43 acres at the southeast corner of Blue Parkway and Cleveland Avenue. The applicant is requesting continuance to June 2nd and staff recommends without fee.
Okay, so it's been recommended by staff that we continue docket item number 11 to the June 2nd meeting. Are there any questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none. Joe, do we have anybody that's raised their hand to speak on this project?
We do not.
Okay, seeing none, look for motion on continue to docket item 11.
Chair Crowell, I move that docket item 11 be continued to June 2nd without fee.
Okay, so I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? None. Lisa, do you mind taking roll call, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Looks like motion carries for continuance of docket item 11 to the June 2nd meeting. So we get to skip one here, Joe. We're actually going to hear number 12.
No, number 12 was proposed to be continued as well.
Okay, gotcha.
Docket item 12, case number CPC 2019-00175. Request to approve a development plan in District M1-5 to allow for a 73,000 square foot mixed use development on 5 lots on about 17 acres located at the southeast corner of East 23rd and 23rd Traffic Way in Interstate 435. Applicant is requesting this case be continued off docket, and because of that, staff is recommending with fee.
Okay. So staff is recommending docket item number 12 be continued off docket with a $130 fee. Any questions from the commission on this particular case?
Joe, can you clarify the off docket condition?
So off docket means they're removing it from your docket, but they have the right to bring it back on the docket at their request. If they do elect to do that without reapplying and starting over, if they do elect to do that, we conduct new public hearing notice since it's being removed from the docket. And that's why we assess the fee most of the time on continued off docket cases.
Okay.
So this is Beasley. So again, my question would be, how long can they do that?
Off docket means it can sit around out there forever. There is no time limit under your current rules.
Okay.
So it could be 5 years later that they could ask for it to be pulled back up on the docket.
Okay.
Any other questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none. Joe, is there anybody in the audience that has raised their hand to speak about docket item number 12?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, with that, looking for a motion about the continuance of docket item 12.
Chair Crowell, I move that docket item 12 be continued off docket with a $30 fee assessed.
130.
$130. Sorry.
There you go. So I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second to continue docket item 12 off docket with a $130 fee. Any other comments? Seeing none, Lisa, do you mind taking roll call? Lisa?
Sorry. Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Prowl,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Looks like motion carries to continue docket item number 12 to the, let's see, June 2nd, or no, it's off docket. So moving on, Joe, how many more do we have? Is everybody doing okay? Do we want to get through all continuances and then take a short break, or take a short break now and continue? What's the?
You have 4 more continuances, and then you have 2 cases that are requested, and then 2 cases where the applicant is requesting you take action to approve.
Okay. Is everybody okay to continue on with the continuances, or you want to take a short break right now to?
Chair Crowell, I'll move for either whatever standard, a 5-minute, 10-minute recess.
Okay. So Joe, go ahead and take just a 10-minute break so everybody can refresh themselves and get another pot of coffee going, if you don't mind.
Okay, sure.
Okay. So at this point in time, we're going to pause the meeting for a 10-minute break, and I've got 10:46, so please be back by 10:56. Looks like we still have a minute or so before we get back in action here with the City Planning Commission meeting.
Kobe, I got a question. I thought it was a good suggestion last night on the email of going around on the buses and so forth. But if we do that, are we in a quorum if we all jump on a bus?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
That would be a public meeting. It would need to be advertised. The public would need the opportunity to participate. So I can think of maybe one or two occasions where I've done that with other boards, but I think we need to give some thought to that just because of the situation we're in with the virus and how would we manage including everybody, you know, and I just feel like I'm going to need to give that some additional thought.
Yeah.
It's a good idea. We're just in such a unique situation with this health crisis that we're in.
I hadn't even thought of COVID-19 if we have public participate as well, but yeah, but I was just wondering about the quorum question.
You're right.
Right.
Yep. Right.
I'm assuming that we'll try to get something figured out on that though. And it may be a few weeks down the road.
Yeah, I was gonna go back and look. It's been years since I've done that with the board, but it has been done. I'm gonna go back and try to look at my notes in my files and see how we arranged that in the past. So
Okay.
do that, and then I'll get back to you about that.
Okay. Forrestine, are you back?
I am.
Fantastic. Okay, so I believe everybody is back now, Joe. So let's go ahead and proceed with our City Planning Committee.
All right, I think we just took action on 12, and I'm gonna hold 13 and 14 because and move on to the rest of the continuances first.
Perfect.
The next continuance is docket item 15.
Joe, I need to recuse myself on this one.
Okay.
Ventures is a part of Black and Veatch.
Okay.
I need to as well. We're conducting architectural services for this development.
Okay. That leaves us with 5 commissioners, which is still a quorum. So I think we're okay.
Yep.
All right. Docket item 15 is case number CPC 2020-00059. Request to rezone approximately 882 acres located in the northwest quadrant of Missouri Highway 169 and Interstate 435 from districts R80 and AGR to District MPD Master Plan Development and approving a development plan for a data center. The applicant is requesting continuance to June 16th and staff is recommending with fee.
Okay, so it's been recommended that docket item number 15 be continued to June 16th. Are there any questions from the commission that remains? Okay, none. Joe, is there anybody that has raised their hand and has a question about the continuance?
No.
Okay, seeing none, I will take a motion on docket item number 15.
Move to continue docket item number 15 to June 16th with fee.
Second.
Okay, so it's been motioned and second to have with a fee, is that correct? Okay. Any other discussion? So Lisa, mind taking roll call for the 5 commissioners?
Commissioner Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
So it's looks like docket item number 15 is passed to continue to the June 16th meeting.
Okay. Next continuance request is docket item 16, case number CPC 2020-00068. A request to approve a 96 unit group living or group home on about 1 acre located at 1406 and 1414 East 27th Street, which is on the north side of East 27th, east of West Paseo Boulevard in District UR Urban Redevelopment. The applicant is requesting continuance to June 2nd and staff recommends without fee.
Okay, So staff is recommending docket item number 16 be continued to the June 2nd meeting. Are there any questions from the commissioners?
Yes, sorry.
Go
I
ahead.
have a question. Would this item require public engagement? It would, okay.
Yes, it does because it's a special, or I'm sorry, sorry, my eye. Looking at the wrong agenda item. It is a, Patty, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a major amendment, right?
Yes, it's an amendment to the urban redevelopment plan. The applicant has sent notice regarding public engagement meeting, and that will be held in the near future.
Okay. Do we, just a question about those, do we get notices, or I'm sorry, how does the public engagement summary get back to the planning department? Do you guys attend that? Is it that the applicant submits a summary?
Yep, that's exactly it. They submit a summary to us by a certain date.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. And we provide that to the commission after our staff reports on any case going forward to be heard.
Okay. Any other questions?
So this is Beasley. Am I off mute?
Yep,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Can I ask this be continued to the 16th?
Sure, you can, if that's if that's what the commission would like to do. Instead of doing it the 2nd, we could do it to the 16th. But I imagine we'd want to hear from the applicant to see what what they have to say about that.
The applicant is listed as John Daldalian, but I do not see anyone by that name attending. Is there someone else representing the applicant team online?
Joe, I believe that Brett Cox.
He's not on either.
Okay, then neither of them are present, but
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it
Kobe.
possible that we can see if we reach Mr. Cox or and see about asking them about continue it to the 16th instead of the 2nd?
Yeah, you can
Move
hold
on
this
to
to the
another
end of
case.
you can hold this to the end of your docket and see if Patty can reach Mr. Cox by that time. And then
Yeah,
we
let's
can
see.
bring it back up.
Let's go ahead and do that.
I'll give him a call right away.
Thank
you.
And
Okay.
can you clarify what the reasoning was for the continuance this term?
This one was due to public engagement, at least in part, as Patty already mentioned. Patty, are you still on?
Yes, I'm
Is there
here.
any other reason for it?
It was a case, as you recall, that wasn't assigned, and we had some delay in processing. So there's been some delay on staff's part.
Okay.
So they probably wanted a chance to vet out some of the conditional items, I would guess.
More than likely, that's usually it if there's delay on our part.
Okay, well, let's hold docket item 16 to the end of the meeting here. And so let's go on to the next one, Joe, if you don't.
Two more continuance requests. Docket item 17, case number SUP 2020-00008. Request to approve a special use permit to allow for a type 2 short-term rental year-round when consent cannot be obtained for a property located at 5961 Northeast 51st Street on about 21,000 square feet in District R-5. The applicant is requesting continuance to June 2nd and staff is recommending without fee.
Okay, so it's been recommended by staff to continue docket item number 17 to June 2nd without a fee. Are any questions from the commission?
One question, what's the definition of type 2 short-term rental? Is that Airbnb,
Yeah.
essentially?
Yeah, short-term rental is just the city's term as defined in the code for an Airbnb or home away, whatever. It's a short-term rental of a residential property. And type 2 is when the owner or permanent resident, like if you have a lease, a long-term lease, does not live in it, but they rent it out for a short-term rental. So type 1 is where they do live in it and also rent out a room, for instance.
Okay, type 2 is a whole unit or whole structure.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Could I request that staff provide the ordinance along with it related to this?
Yeah, it's enjoyable reading. We'll provide it to you.
Yeah, I remember the debate about it, so I want to make sure that I'm understanding it correctly. So
yeah,
Okay,
we'll provide that to you.
questions? Any other questions about docket item 17? Joe, is there anybody in the audience that has raised their hand regarding docket item 17?
No, Trinidad Molina, just for the record, did raise his hand on 16, but since we're coming back to that, I don't believe, yeah, he just lowered his hand.
Okay.
So yeah,
Very
no
good.
one on 17.
So with that, I'll take a motion on the continuance of docket item 17.
Motion to continue docket item 17 to June 2nd without fee.
Okay, so I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, so Lisa, I'm taking roll call, please.
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Corral,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
So at docket item 17, it will be continued to the June 2nd meeting as voted unanimously.
All right, the last continuance request for now. Docket item 18, case number CPC 2020-00006. Request to amend the Chapter 88, the Zoning and Development Code as it relates to Section 88-445, which is signage, and any other necessary sections to revise sign types and sizes for signage allowed within the downtown loop. Staff is requesting this case be continued to June 16th, and that would be without fee.
Okay, so it's been recommended that we continue docket item number 18 to the June 16th meeting without fee. Are there any questions from the commission?
I have a question. Does this tie in with the previous one we did
No,
for
it's complete.
signage?
They both have to do with the sign chapter, but they're unrelated.
Okay.
Okay, any
And it's
questions?
to the 16th as well, right?
Yeah.
It went to the 16th, that other one? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other?
Does this require community engagement?
Yes, I believe, yes, we would normally do that. This one is specific to geography, unlike a lot of other amendments, because it's related to, we have special standards for signage in the downtown loop. So this would only affect that as far as I know. And I think Patty is probably not able at this time to speak to that. I'm guessing she's trying to get hold. Yeah.
I'm here. I was on the phone call with Brett, but just a second. Go ahead. What was the question?
Are we running this through KCNAC or anything, this particular amendment?
Yes, the intent is I was scheduled for KCNAC on March 23rd, which was the first day of the quarantine at home. So that meeting was canceled. So I am going to appear with you and Jamie on the other ordinance pertaining to sign regulations at such time we can have that rescheduled.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Hey, any other questions? Is there anybody in the audience that has raised their hand about docket item number 18? Seeing none, so I'll take a motion on continuance of docket item 18.
Chair Crow.
Oh, you go.
Chair Crow, I move that docket item, I lost my place, 18, be continued to June 16th without fee.
Okay, I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Lisa, will you take roll call, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
So it looks like docket item number 18 has been voted unanimously to continue to the June 16th meeting. Should we go back to docket item 16? Patty, were you able to get a hold of Mr. Cox? Or should we wait on that continuance?
You could wait just a couple of minutes. I am in the process of sending him the hearing link, and then he
Okay.
would like to express his concerns with the continuance. So maybe about 10 minutes.
Okay, so Joe, let's go ahead and move to, are we ready to hear a case?
Sounds like it, finally.
Fantastic. Let's go ahead and hear our first case.
All right, the first one is docket item 13, case number SUP 2020-00012. Request to approve a special use permit in District R6, generally located at the southeast corner of Northeast 48th Street, North Topping Avenue, to allow for stadium upgrades and overall renovations to the school on about 38 acres. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I had a small presentation before that, but it has to do with this. So I guess I'll take it and then run
Yeah,
right
no, I
after
think,
this case.
yeah, I think it's fine to talk about what SUPs are as part of the beginning of this presentation.
Okay.
And commissioners, just in reference, he's going to provide you with a bit of background about SUPs. As I mentioned, I think in training, we will try to do that whenever you hear a case type for the first time. We'll try to provide you with a bit of education about it. So hopefully we'll start with that and then go into the case.
All right, let me try to share my screen. Joe, can you allow me to share my screen? So. You may have to promote me to a host, I think, Joe.
Should be now.
Okay. Let me know if you can see it. Can you
We
see
got
my
it.
screen?
I can see it, Olafu.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Plan Commission, Olafu Agbaji City Planning and Development staff, and I'd like to welcome you guys to the commission on your very first hearing. Prior to going to the two cases I have before you today, I would like to just go through a quick script on what special use permits are. So at the end of this short presentation, you know what a special use permit is. You also know why we require special use permits, and hopefully, and also you know what your role is in the special use permit process and what those processes are through this. So special use permit or conditional use permit, they are called conditional use permit in other jurisdictions, and the city used to call it conditional use permit. This is a process that allows for public hearing, which informs the neighboring residents of proposed improvement and gives the city and the neighborhood the ability to restrict and condition these proposed uses. This is a way to allow incompatible uses, to exist and be able to mitigate and control those. So the Plan Commission has this power or this authority to review this. I did not want to change this because I want it to be read as it is in the code. So section 88.52501 states the intent of a special use permit, and I will read it, sorry for the text, but it's important to understand it as it's written in the code. Special uses, these are uses that require special use permit approval prior to being allowed, are uses that because of their widely varying land use and operational characteristics require case-by-case review in order to determine whether they will be compatible with surrounding uses and development patterns. Case-by-case review is intended to ensure consideration of the special uses, anticipated land use, site design, signage, and operational impacts. Special use may or may not be approved after due consideration of the impact of such uses on the surrounding area and the public need for the use at the subject location. So with that said, the process of a special use permit, prior to any applicant filing for a special use permit, they are required to hold a public meeting, a pre-application meeting with city staff, usually our office, to determine the scope and then make sure that what they're proposing is allowed and they're going through the right process. Once that's determined, they then file an application. And once that application is filed, it will be docketed on the next available docket based on the deadline and the cutoff date. Notice of public hearing is then posted, mailed and posted. We've not been doing posting due to the COVID, so we mailed the notice of public hearing. And special use permit does require public engagement. So the applicant is required within those timeline and those stipulated dates to meet the public engagement. And due to COVID, we've been doing them virtually. So it's taking a little longer to get the applicants on board on that. Following that, there's a DRC review, and DRC does make recommendation, and the applicant has a 2-week window to reappear before DRC if they have comments, questions regarding those stipulated conditions or recommendations by the DRC. After which staff then writes a staff report that's presented before you, which I will be doing shortly. So our staff brings the DRC recommendation forward to the City Plan Commission, which is your role in the process. So City Plan Commission will hear the recommendation from staff, and then you will also now be making a recommendation to the Board of Zoning Adjustment, who is the final hearing body for special use permits. So special use permit generally have 2 public hearings, one before you, the City Plan Commission, and the second hearing is before the Board of Zoning Adjustment, subject to whatever you recommend. So in our staff report, you'll be seeing this graphic on the front page that tells you what that process is. So I just put it on here. So as soon as you see the staff report, it will tell you it's been reviewed by staff, it goes to City Plan Commission, and then it goes to the Board of Zoning Adjustment. Other case types will go either end with you, like the project plan, will end with you where they go for a building permit. If it's a rezoning case, that then goes on to City Council. But we put this on the face of our staff report. So as soon as you open the front page, you will see that that's the route that the case is designed to take. Special use permit are also considered for those uses that are neither prohibited or permitted outright, but which may be acceptable given the specifics of their location and method of operation. Special use permit must be found to be in conformance with the 5 criteria in Chapter 88-525-09. And these are the criteria that we use to review special use permit, and you will be reviewing and asking staff questions on. So the first one is that it must comply with all applicable standards of zoning and development code. B is that is in the interest of the public convenience and will not have a significant adverse impact on the general welfare of the neighborhood or community. C is compatible with the character of the surrounding areas in terms of site planning and building scale and project. D is compatible with the character of the surrounding areas in terms of operating characteristics such as hours of operation, outdoor lighting, noise, and traffic generation. And E will not have a significant adverse impact on pedestrian safety or comfort. So those are the approval criteria. And if you have any specific questions of me, Joe, or Sarah on special use permit, the why, the how, and we'll be glad to answer those before I go into the first case.
Mr. Olafu, this is Chair Crowell. I have a couple of questions. So the first one being, is there time limit on special use permits?
Not for every case, but the Plan Commission in the past, I think the only cases that require special use is transfer stations. Those have a limit of 5 years that you have to go back both to Plan Commission and the DNR. Other cases, the Plan Commission, when establishing special use permit in certain areas for the first time, I've put on time limits. Staff does recommend some of those usually just to see if the operation will be compatible, and then they will come back and get the special use permit in perpetuity. Generally, if it's not deemed, if we don't see any issue with it, we do not recommend staff, but the commission can certainly ask, and based on testimony or based on each individual situation, from time to time, you've stipulated time, 2 years, 3 years to come back. So.
Okay, and the other question I had, once a property has been issued a special use permit, does that expire if that property owner sells or the business goes away, or does that special use permit stay with that actual property forever?
No, it does not expire. It runs with the land. So for that to change, it has to be either revoked or it has to be amended beyond what's shown on the special use permit.
Okay.
If the use, this is Joe, if the use ceases operation that was granted with the special use permit, then after a period of time of ceasing operation, it expires, so to speak. But other than that, it runs with the land.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that those two items were out there, that the rest of the commission understands that. Does any other commissioner have a question? Special use permits.
Olafu, is this available, the PowerPoint afterwards? Are you able to send that to us?
I can send it to you if.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have a question?
I don't have a question. I have a small request. I was typing notes and can't see his screen. So when you go to the next presentation, can you stop sharing your screen and share it again so it'll pop up for me? Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Okay. All right, I believe we're ready to move on, if you don't mind, to the actual presentation of the staff report.
Kobe, Chair.
Yes,
I have
sir.
a question. So this is a school. So the school wouldn't have had a stadium approved as a special already, and that's why they need a special use permit. But I can wait until the presentation too. But I'm just
I think Olafu will explain that in his presentation. They're coming to get a special use permit on this actual project for the school.
If you would give me 1 minute, let me figure out how to unshare my screen. Okay, see it. All right, I'm gonna reshare now.
While you're doing that, I really appreciate everybody's patience as we run through this first meeting. It does seem a little cumbersome, but frankly, I think it's going very well with a whole new commission and new chair and getting the reports done. So thank you, everybody, for doing a great job and your patience.
All right, can you all see the screen now?
I can.
Docket item number 13, case number SUP 2020-0012. This is a request for a special use permit by Winnetonka, by North Kansas City School District for renovation to Winnetonka High School. Again, this is a picture of the overall city with my arrow pointing to the general location of the site. Closer zooming shows the site to be on the south side of Northeast 48th Street, between 435 on the east and North Brighton and 35 on the west. Again, this is an aerial view of the site with my arrow pointing to the school. To the northeast corner of the site is the Ford Claycomo plant. Gracemore neighborhood is just south of that, and then Walls of Fawn is just further east of that and east of 435. Hunt Midwest Business Center is a little southeast of the site. Parvin Road is on the south, North Brighton is on the west of the site, and Maple Park both I think middle school and elementary school are just north of Northeast 48th Street. Again, this is an aerial view of Winnetonka High School. Again, the school, as you can see, is located just on the south side of 48th Street. There's staff parking to the east of the school, and then student and visitor parking is on the west side with tennis court, football, baseball, and softball athletic fields around the site. The site is this is a view of the site looking east with topping at the lower bottom. Again, the same site. This is the school. It's about 37 acres, zoned R6, which is a residential zoning, and thus requires a special use permit. And to answer Commissioner Allender's question, special use permits, schools and residential schools and religious assembly and civil uses are allowed in residential district subject to the criteria above. So schools within are permitted subject to 3365. This is, so within the zoning district, a school is permitted on a parcel or tract of land entirely surrounded by any combination of highways, streets, alley, or railways, or any other adjoining lot or group of adjoining lot approved through the special use approval process, where it shall be found that the use meets the following provisions. So this is the section of the code that allows for location of schools within the residential district. So because the school has been established, this technically is an amendment to an already existing special use permit. We deem it to be major, so we bring it forward to Plan Commission and BZA and bring it to a public forum so that they know what's been done at that location. So the provisions that says is that the use does not materially damage or curtail the appropriate use of the neighboring property. The use conforms to the applicable district regulations. The use is compatible with the general character of the district. The use does not jeopardize public health, safety, or welfare. And the use does not violate the general spirit and intent of this chapter and section. So with that, I'll go into what Winnetonka is, what the North Kansas School District is proposing for Winnetonka. So again, the property is zone R6, which is residential /6, and it's about 37 acres. And there are interior renovations to the existing school that's not visible. So this will be media center renovation, weight room improvement, field house locker room improvement, field house bleacher upgrade. But the visible and the exterior renovation will be to the stadium itself. And the stadium upgrade includes converting the tracks from 6 to 8 lanes, new press box, new stadium seating, which will be about 2,500 seats, new scoreboard upgrade, and then an entry pavilion, concession, ticketing, and restrooms. So that's what's been proposed with this special use permit. So based on my prior picture, you see the proposed, where my arrow shows is the proposed pavilion and entry just off the existing parking. And then the proposed grandstand will be at this location. So if I go back to this, so looking at this, the grandstand will be at where my arrow is pointing, and then the proposed pavilion will be at this area. Again, this is the look, an aerial view or perspective showing the proposed pavilion, gate, and restroom, and then the new grandstand. The applicant or the school does intend to relocate 2 of the light poles. And for a matter of background, back in 2017, they received a special use permit from the Board of Zoning Adjustment to install light on the stadium. And part of that required them to submit a lighting plan that ensured that the lighting on this parcel meets the requirement of the code. As part of this proposal, they are moving the post from this from the approved earlier location to behind the grandstand. So I have a condition that requires that they update that lighting plan to reflect the new location of the light poles. This is the grandstand. As you can see, it's in the school colors, Winnetonka colors. So this is a closer look at the pavilion with the school logo and the school colors. And this is the site plan. Staff's recommendation of this is for approval subject to the 9 conditions. And I do have the applicant and the agent, Mr. Brian Holston and Jeff Vidal. I might have killed your last name. Jeff should be online. So the applicant and the school representative are online to take any questions. I will leave the public engagement piece to Mr. Holston to explain how that was done. So I'll leave that to Brian.
Okay, thank you, Olafu, for that presentation. Are there any questions for staff regarding this case?
I had a question about noise levels and to the extent to which that was considered and designed around.
The noise ordinance, sorry, the noise ordinance is regulated by a different chapter of the city code, and they would still be subject to that. I will let the applicant talk about whether they've taken their design into consideration as it relates to noise levels.
Okay. Okay. I understand that's hard to even talk about right now, but just down the line.
Good morning, can everybody hear me?
Okay, any other questions from the commission staff?
Quick question. What does a lighting plan include just generally?
It includes the photometrics. So it includes a cut sheet that shows both the foot candles, the height of the pole, and the overall contours of the emitted light. And there are strict standard that they had to meet. And I think it was done by a lighting engineer and approved and certified by a lighting engineer. None of us on city staff is a lighting engineer. So the school was required to certify that and turn that into city staff.
And we understand foot candle and photometric are very technical terms. Foot candle, for those commissioners who don't know, is just like the measurement of the level of illumination or brightness coming from a light. And a photometric plan or study is showing how that light is spread across a property and where that measurements are relative to property lines, for example, or light fixtures. Okay, any other question from the commissioners?
Yeah, I've just got a question with regards to stormwater management. Is there any consideration of putting green infrastructure in there as a part of the development?
I can answer that. As part of the conditions on that, you'll see generally those that are, so document or the 2, 3, 4, 5, somewhere in there, they will talk about storm drainage, where they'll need to do a study on that, not only for volume and detention, but also some BMPs. So that'll be done as part of the design and the Smith project itself.
Okay, so we don't know.
Mr. Chair, it's actually number 3. So number
okay,
3, condition number 3.
Yeah.
Right.
So at this stage of the game, Commissioner, we don't look at the stormwater yet. They do present that as part of the project when they meet with staff, but don't get into the fine details at this point in time.
Okay.
And I'm sure Ms. Lowe can actually answer that question better.
Thank you, Commissioner Crowell. This is Stacy Lowe, Division Manager of Land Development with the City Planning Department. Yes, on this type of case, the applicant, when they submit their plans for building plan and permit review, would be required to submit the storm drainage analysis for staff consideration. If there are any improvements that are needed to be made to the site in order to meet the storm drainage requirements, we will ask them to do that as part of at that time. And yes, condition number 3 is included in the staff report, which addresses that requirement of the applicant.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stacy.
I had one additional question on parking. It didn't seem like there was an increase in parking, and I would imagine that it's going to stay the same, similar, or can someone confirm that?
I addressed that with a condition, and I will show it to you after. If you want, or others, I can show you. The code, because of our stadium and gathering, if you look on the screen, the plan shall be revised and noted and submitted prior to issuance of building permit. 1A says provide a parking ratio based on the existing school and proposed stadium per section 88, 42008. The code requires them to do a parking analysis of the entire school and activities that's going to occur. So we need to see how that will be to make sure that they can accommodate the 2,500 seating capacity. They did not provide that, and I'll need that to be part of the special use permit. So to make sure that we can seat 2,500 people.
And is there, when is a traffic study required for something like this, since it is in a residential area?
I will let Jeff, is Jeff on?
Jeff Bryan, our from Public Works Department, should be able to help answer that question.
Yeah, this is Jeff Bryan with Public Works, like I said, and the traffic impact studies are generally required. The requirement is for when there's an addition of 100 peak hour trips. And so in this case, with the existing school, and my understanding is there's no increase in enrollment or with the proposed addition. So based on that requirement, it was anticipated that there would not be an increase in the amount of trips due to the expansion. So therefore, a traffic impact study was not required as part of this project.
Okay, that's good to know for future reference. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, any questions from the commission? I do want to point out, as you're noticing here, that this, not only do we have the planning staff at our meetings, but we also have other staff from city departments available to us to ask these kind of questions, and really appreciate them being as part of the meeting to help us out on this. So with that, if we can go to the applicant, and applicant, welcome. Mr. Hochstein, it's thank you for being with us today and your patience as we get to this project. So if you'd like to talk about it, please do.
Good morning, I'm Brian Hochstein with MKEC Engineering, representing the North Kansas City School District. Can everybody hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Can you see my screen?
I can see your screen.
Okay.
Thank you for pulling that up, Olafu. We did do we scrambled a little bit, but we did do a public engagement meeting. We used an online resource. We sent mailers to, I believe, between the two schools, we sent out 180. So I think we sent about 85 to 90 neighbors within the 300 feet and invited them. On Winnetonka, we did not have anybody attend the meeting. So we did host a meeting ourselves and took notes. We piggybacked this with our Oak Park meeting, which we'll do next. And so when we did that, we were able to kind of do a practice run on it. But we did present the location, site information, description of the improvements in the infrastructure. And then attended at the meeting were Jeff Vandal with North Kansas City School District, who should also be on here today with me. And then the architects represented by HDK Architects. I won't go into much detail because Olafu did a very good job kind of walking through everything that's on here. What I would say is that the applicant agrees with most of the stipulations. There's a couple clarifications and a couple stipulations we do want to discuss. One being the landscaping screening requirements. We did reach out on that comment for providing street trees along the frontages in accordance with 88-425-03. Not necessarily a concern, more of just a clarification. As an established site, what was the city looking for? You know, code says 1 every 30 feet, and we're improving, you know, the length of a football field, yet have 36 acres. We would like that stipulation to be adjusted to at least give us a quantity. And again, we did try and coordinate this particular item. Our recommendation was going to be on somewhere on the avenue of 10 trees along the football stadium right away is what our thought was. And this would apply to both of the projects here. The second item, I think we've worked out, Stacy Lowe's on here, so she can speak to it a little bit. There's a unique situation on Winnetonka where there's a sanitary sewer main that is in a public easement, and it actually goes underneath the football field and it's going to go underneath the proposed stadium. As a public main, typically that's serving a whole development or other properties. In this case, this main only serves Winnetonka High School. So Stacy had put in a recommendation to remove the sanitary and move it from underneath the footprint of the proposed stadium, which makes sense. We believe that we can construct the stadium around the sanitary sewer as it exists now. And the school district has proposed that we take that line private, as in it would no longer be the responsibility of the city and would basically serve as the main for Winnetonka High School to the public right away. And then the school district would take over the maintenance of that line. We can't adjust today that stipulation, but we would like to add an or to it to say, or allow North Kansas City School District to take over and maintain that easement. Those are the two items that we wanted to discuss today and see if we could get clarification or adjustments to the stipulations prior to a vote.
Okay. So before we get into those two conditions, are there any other questions that the commission has for the applicant?
I have a general question. This is Commissioner Hill. When we talk about public engagement, thank you for providing the summary. But as I look at the attendees, it looks like all of the attendees are folks that are a part of the project or that represent the school district. So my question to you guys is, when we see that there's no general public attendees, and due to the nature of COVID, do we ask that there is another public engagement meeting, or what's our standard of practice for that?
Commissioner.
There really isn't a standard because we're all kind of trying to find what works best at this moment. The council's requirement is just, when they modified it, is just that they use a online forum for a virtual meeting. In terms of who they notify or invite to the meeting, all that requirement stayed the same, and it's consistent with what staff does when we notify of the public hearing. It's all property owners within 300 feet. I'll let Mr. Hochstein jump in and explain what exactly they did. Perhaps you can go into a bit more detail about the date and what platform they used and things like that.
Commissioner Hill, I can say we did successfully host one for Oak Park. We had attendees on that one, so it does work. We mailed, I believe, 86 mailers out for our meeting. We hosted on a Wednesday evening at 6 p.m. if I'm recalling, kind of off the top of my head. But we used GoToMeeting seminars, so people just simply, there was a link for them to sign up on, and once they were signed up, they were let into the meeting. And how we hosted the meetings were to introduce the project and have everybody unmute, kind of like it's become a standard format for some of these public meetings. And then we had a questions dialog box. That software allows people to input questions as we go. So we went through each series of questions. If anybody had any questions and answered those, you'll see that on Oak Park because we had attendees. And then we, at the end, unmuted everybody and kind of let it be a free-for-all. If anybody, just to make sure, that was our primary goal that we restated a few times, just to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to speak. And I would say it's unique that this is going on, but we've actually hosted 4 public meetings, separate from just Kansas City, Missouri in this manner. We've had pretty good success with it. I mean, it does come with its technological disadvantages. But I think when we get to Oak Park, you'll see that it worked out pretty well. But yeah, I had 1 return on like both schools of the mailing that we sent out. So,
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I did communicate with, I think, 3 neighbors that had questions about the project, and I did respond email to them. So those were the only contact to staff. They just had questions as to what's been proposed and what's been done, and I just responded, and they didn't hit me back after I responded to them.
Commissioner Hill, I would also briefly add that neither Winnetonka or Oak Park has a neighborhood association. That typically we do go to them and let them set up the meeting. In this case, neither of them has one, so that's why we hosted it ourselves. If we would have had a live one, it was our intent to host it at the school libraries of both Winnetonka and Oak Park, but unfortunately that did not happen.
Thank you for providing the detail. I think that you guys did the best that you could given COVID. That might be something for the commission to take a look at. I'm not as familiar with the public engagement ordinance, but we know that in some of our districts, there is a digital divide and folks don't have access, or we have seniors that might not be as familiar. So we might just want to think, particularly when it's a special use project, because it gives, as I'm reading it, the public hearing process, which informs the neighborhood residents of the proposed improvements and any kind of conditions or restrictions that they may have. So I appreciate the work that you guys have done. No qualms with that. Just wanted to make sure that I understand clearly and we provide an opportunity for folks to get engaged.
I would also briefly add, you brought up another thing that jogged it. Typically, we only send a letter inviting people to the meeting. In these times, we have added the plans. So we mailed 11 by 17 plans of what those improvements would be, so people could actually physically see it, since we didn't know if they'd be able to make it to the meeting. Furthermore, that's what we talked from. We talked about those plans. We didn't show extra stuff in the presentation. That was the goal, so that everybody had the same information. And then finally, at the bottom, we were very careful to include in the letter, if you cannot access a computer, do not have online access, call me. And I did have 1 or 2 calls on Winnetonka, but it was more because we had our north arrow facing the wrong way, and a few people were like, which way's north? So we didn't have any specific questions from that, but that's how we tried to handle how do we actually get the information in their hands if they do not have the ability to join us in an online meeting.
Okay, any other questions from the commission for the applicant?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just a question with regards to the tree planting. You're planting less trees, and so what's the impact on that to surrounding community and so forth? What is the reason for less planting of the trees? That's my first question. And then my second question is, the private takeover, is there a process that the city has to go through for you to take over that private sewer? And I'm just wondering how old that sewer actually is. So is there a, and I just don't know how old that sewer is. So is there a, if it's old, does it make any sense to relocate it and put a new one in? So just a couple of questions around that.
Okay, I think let's take the landscape one first, with the necessity of that. And then as far as any adjustments to those conditions, let's reserve that till after we hear public testimony, if you don't mind.
No, that's fine.
Can I ask a clarifying question about the landscape? Because I had a similar question to Bruce, which is the less trees and what that impact might be. according to what the staff has recommended, they would like to see a landscape plan. I think for me to be able to judge whether that seems sufficient or to have a authority on it, I would need to kind of see that. What's the process for getting that landscape plan, and are we able to make our decision based on it?
Olufu, if you don't mind, I'd like to try to help answer that street tree question because I can share my screen and show them a close-up aerial.
Yeah, go ahead.
That might help.
Did you see on mine that they can do an administrative alternative adjustment to that? So
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to say.
yeah.
So I think the question that the applicant brings up, so street trees are required either in the right of way or within 10 feet of all public streets within the development or abutting it. So as you can see in this case, there aren't any public streets within the development, but they do have a lot of street frontage. So the requirement is 1 tree per 30 feet of street frontage. And in this case, that would probably be hundreds of trees. So I think that that's the basis for their concern about the request. What we try to do on requirements like this, as Olufu has done with his recommendation, is he references the code section 88-425. And 88-425 is the entire landscape chapter. It actually establishes a process for alternative compliance, which staff has authority to grant for any landscaping requirements. And we have done that in cases like this where there's I would argue that kind of the scope of what the applicant is proposing may not be proportional to hundreds of trees, for example. And so that is an option that the applicant could pursue. They either need to provide a landscape plan showing the street trees as required by code, or pursue alternative compliance, which itself would be a landscape plan. And I think we're covering both bases with Olufu's condition.
Yeah.
They can do either or.
And Joe, just to add, I had a conference call with the superintendent yesterday for the North Kansas School District, and I think Jeff was on. And the whole goal is to try to incrementally get some trees on the site. So they should propose what the school can afford now, and also putting the school on notice that we do have to try to get trees. But so we'll see what the propose and staff will be. The director this is an administrative adjustment that's approved by the director through staff. So we will look at it and make sure it's reasonable. But one was not provided, and I see why they didn't, because they just putting in a grandstand and every other thing on the site is existing. But we gradually want to get street trees on all the sites based on how long the school has been there. So every time, and I told the superintendent this yesterday, every time you do something, we want you to, and not only that, I think condition number 1, I had conditions also that had to do with sidewalk and connectivity also. I think that one has to do with OPAC. So we want to get them incrementally without breaking the bank.
Does that answer the question?
I think so. I just wanted to comment that I feel like the concern would be along Topping Avenue. If you have 1,200 people facing that street and you don't have enough landscaping along there, it may not be hundreds of trees, but if there was a priority, it would be that, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'll make sure I look at that. So we can start from there and then gradually transition to 48th Street.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Forrest Sting. Am I mute or unmute?
We can hear you.
Oh, you can hear us. So are there existing trees there now?
No.
Okay.
I don't believe there are existing trees along for Topping.
So can they also request the type of trees when they're doing this? Does that come into play anywhere? Because I know sweet gum trees everybody's upset with. So is there part of the tree requirements a type of tree to be considered?
Yes, we have a list of trees that have prohibited list of trees on it. So landscapers have. So we do have trees that are restricted in the city.
Oh, thank you, Joe. That's a good picture. Thank you.
That's Topping Avenue looking north from the
Okay.
southwest corner of the site.
Okay. So trees would be a great improvement.
Yep.
And you said a sidewalk on this side too, right?
They're not doing sidewalk, and there's no sidewalk on this site at all. So all the improvement will be internally and to get pedestrian through to the. So all the improvement on this site will be internal.
Okay.
So would trees like potentially on Topping be, because it looks like that's a drainage ditch, right? And so how would that be coordinated with the stormwater coming off that hill, just generally?
We have survey of the entire area. So what we propose, we'll look at the best places for them. And the statute, while it says one per 30 feet, we have a lot of room we can bunch them together, to bring them together to work better along that roadway. So yeah, we would avoid some of those lower areas. And then, when it comes to species, like Olufu said, we follow the city guidelines on those tree species for that area.
Okay, are there any other, Ms. Lowe, do you want to talk a little bit about the sewer piece?
Of course, Mr. Chairman. The requirement to relocate the sewer came because the bleachers under the city's building code requirements are considered a permanent structure. And this would be an encroachment on the city's existing easement that's not acceptable to the Water Services Department, which is why we requested the line be relocated. I have contacted Water Services to ask about their acceptance of the idea to make this line private. I have not heard back from them. Either making the line private and vacating the easement or moving the line, either one of those, in the opinion of land development, would satisfy this condition for us.
Okay, so we could add that language as part of one of the conditions on here. I was trying to find which condition it was about the sewer.
Number 2.
Yeah,
Number 2.
It's condition number 2. If you leave the language as is, that's how we'll still interpret it, that either the relocation of the public line or vacating the public line to make it private, we would consider either one of those as satisfying the condition. If the commission chooses to modify the wording, we would be acceptable with that as well.
Okay.
Just, do we know how old the line is?
Water Services is looking into the location of the line. Typically, when they take public lines and turn them into private, they want a specific point to make as a boundary between that public and private, typically in a manhole. So I believe they were looking into verify the locations of the closest manhole and where it would be acceptable. They may ask that the applicant go further back to make more of that line private than what they may have intended to maybe offer. So I think that's part of the reason Water Services is still evaluating it, to make sure where they can make a break in the line.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commission, any other questions of staff and the applicant, or mainly the applicant, before we open it up to public testimony? Okay, seeing none, so at this time, I'm going to open up this docket item 13 for public testimony. Is there anybody that has raised their hand to speak about this particular docket item?
Mr. Chair, I don't see anyone raising their hand to speak.
Okay. So at this time, we will close public testimony. Is there anything else the applicant would like to add for this case before we go into the commission speaking?
Not at this time. Jeff, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't have anything more to add right now.
Okay. So at this point, so commissioners, we've heard the case. And so either like to have some discussion among the commissioners or go straight to a motion in this particular case. So it looks like don't have any discussion to have. So can I get a motion on case number 13?
Chair Crowell, I move that docket number 13 be approved, subject to the 9 conditions recommended by staff that's outlined in the staff report.
Okay, so I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so a motion and a second, and just want to confirm as part of discussion here that we'll allow staff to work with the applicant on the street trees and how that works out, as well as the leaving item number 2 as is, or allow them to convert that over to a private sewer line. Is that correct?
That's our understanding, and I would assume the applicant, that's why they were okay with the conditions.
Very good.
Right. Brian and Jeff say otherwise if okay.
No, that's correct.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. So Lisa, if you don't mind taking roll call.
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, so it looks like the motion carries for approval of the project. That's docket item number 13. Good luck with this project.
Thanks.
And I think you guys get to stay around for the next item as well.
All right.
All right.
Mr. Chair, do you want to take up 16 now that the applicant's on, or do you want to go ahead and move on to the applicant's next case on 14, which is Oak Park?
It seems like since we already have the applicants here from docket 13, so we might as well go ahead and continue with 14.
Okay. Docket item 14 is case number SUP 2020-00013. A request to approve a special use permit in District R-80 to allow for a stadium upgrade and overall renovations to a school on 52 acres located at the southwest corner of Northeast 79th Terrace and North Troost Avenue. Olafug Baji is our staff planner.
Thank you, Joe. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Olafur Agbaji. This next case again is another request by the North Kansas City School District for a special use permit, and this is located still in the Northland. So where my arrow is pointing just above the city of Gladstone. Again, this is the site just south of 152, east of 169, and just west of Missouri Route 1. This is the existing Oak Park High School, and it's just out of Berry Road. Metro North Metro North crossing is to the northwest corner of the site, and Maplewoods Metropolitan Community College is to the northeast of the site. North Oak Traffic Way just runs about 3 blocks west of the school. This is a close shot of the school as it exists. So the school is partially within the city of Gladstone. And to the south of the school is Oak Grove Park, which is within the city of Gladstone and the Gladstone Parks community facility. North Troost Avenue is to the east of the site, and then to the north of the site is Northeast 79 Terrace. So the school is located just within this area, and it's about 52 acres. This is a view of the school looking south. So Northeast 79 Terrace is at the bottom of the screen where my arrow is, shows softball fields to the east of the school, and then the baseball field to the west. So the school has access off Troost and then off Northeast 79 Terrace. I may run a little long on this because for purpose of disclosure, both of my kids went to school here. So I know the school real well, so excuse me if I keep going on. So soccer fields are to the east of the school, and then the tennis courts and the stadium is on the south side of the school. The reason I have this picture is that recently, I think last week, they just put in sidewalk along Northeast 79th Terrace, and this is done through PIAC. So this is a city project. Public Works did this, and we had planned this at prior to 2017. I had requested sidewalk as part of the special use permit that installed light at the stadium, and they requested for PIAC, and thanks to former Councilman Wagner, was able to get this on, and the sidewalks, I want to say, are in. So again, this is the sidewalk in front of the school, but that still leaves additional sidewalk along North Troost that's not present today. And again, my discussion with the superintendent is that he will look to get those. That is not feasible because of the steep grade on both sides of Troost. There are existing sidewalk on the west side of Troost, but none on the east side close to the school. And the drive from Troost to the school is also steep and high, so it makes it difficult to do that as part of this project. Again, this is the site, zoned R80, about 52 acres, zoned R80. Again, renovations to Oak Park will be media center renovation, new entry, south entry addition, weight room addition, locker room addition. So the area in blue where my arrow is going to be the locker room addition. That will be right off the existing gym, and there will be a new entry into the school. So this will be a student entry on the south side of the school. There will be a new pavilion, which will be a pavilion ticketing gate, which will be in the middle of the site. And then there is a second south pavilion that's proposed within the city of Gladstone, but it will be part of this project and through. So based on that, this plan will also convert the tracks from 6 to 8 lanes, new press box, new stadium with the same capacity, 2,500, new scoreboard. And this is a rendering of the proposed addition. The approval is being granted for 2 stories, but at this time, phase 1, they will only be building the first story. It's about 15,000 square feet of floor, and they will be going up to 2 stories, but at this time it will be 1 story. And this is where the proposed addition will go. The entry feature will go where the first arrow is, and then the addition of the new locker room, weight room, restroom facility will be within this area that's just currently grass, and all the existing drives and site will remain the same. This is what it will look like. So this will be the entry for both visitors and home locker room and their weight room, coaches' offices. And then this is the new entry into the school. The grandstand the pavilion is proposed to go at this location, the grandstand at this location, and the south pavilion at this location. Again, this is what it will look like. Similar to the Winnetonka case, they will be relocating the light poles, and I just recommend that they update that lighting plan to make sure that the poles meet the standards. This is the grandstand, again, also in school colors. And this is the North Pavilion, which is the main entry from the school onto the stadium. And this is the South Pavilion within the city of Gladstone. Again, with this, I did have additional pedestrian walkability. I had a condition that says pedestrian walkability through the site is to be to the concession and stadium entry area from existing public streets. And what that is to make sure that the pedestrian access from, especially the new sidewalk, is designated so that they don't walk on the street like they've been used to. So I think this will be critical mostly for 79th more than Troost because there's no existing pedestrian and ability to do that. They also need to provide a parking ratio as I recommended and also update the lighting plan. Again, the street trees, we will take the administrative adjustment as we did with Winnetonka also. So with that, staff's recommendation is for approval subject to the 10 conditions, and I'll take any questions.
Okay. Commissioners, are there any questions for staff on this project? So I do have a question for you, Olafu. So there's no sidewalk as part of this project that will be built along Troost, simply because the grade is quite a bit different. But is there, going into the main entrance from the east side of the school, is there pedestrian access from Troost up to the school from that area?
No, that's also challenging. I don't know, Joe, can you bring up the street view?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. I'll let Joe bring up the street view. There's existing sidewalk on the west side of Troost.
Or the east side of Troost?
Yeah, on the east side of Troost.
Okay.
So this is looking north up Troost. I'm sorry, that's looking south. So this would be north. So the sidewalk's on the east side currently. So yeah, it's April 2019. I believe that's the school.
Go north a little bit, I think.
Where, to the intersection, guys?
To the school drive, yeah.
Right here?
Yep.
So at that point, everything rises coming from the school, especially the drive to the school.
I'll ask the question when we introduce the applicant. Okay, is there any other questions from commissioners with staff on this?
I just have a question regarding those power lines. Are they going to obstruct anything?
No.
No, they
Not
are
on this
existing,
project.
so, and there's no proposed improvement around here.
Okay, so at this, go ahead.
Joe, you want to go north a little bit? Just right there, then turn, yep. Thank you.
I'll leave it there.
Yep.
Okay, so at this time, let's go ahead and introduce the applicant and let them talk about the project from their standpoint.
Hello, Brian Hochstein, MKAC Engineering, representing North Kansas City School District again. I think Olafu did a great job again, kind of showing what our improvements are. I think doing the street view is also valuable because you begin to see some of the difficulties with the site. The other thing I'd kind of point out on both of these schools, the adjacent public road is pretty minimal. I'm putting it down a little bit, but when those improvements happen, I think there's a wider discussion, from the city, what improvements are going to happen with the streets as well. But we did host the public engagement meeting. We had, I believe, 4 or 5 folks show up to that. And we did have some pretty general questions. Often you'll find in these public meetings that you're getting questions that don't really pertain to what you're doing, but we do have the register of all of the folks who attended the meeting. And some of the questions they have are kind of how does this affect my house on Troost? Our answer to that was that, you know, the improvements are mostly internal, but it shouldn't affect you any different than another large event, you know, like a basketball game, you know, when people are leaving. So it's pretty similar to other events and on the same timeline and schedule. The school's not, you know, doesn't do things very late into the evening. There's a question about when the school bond vote was. We simply answered that. And then a question about the goal for construction. The intent is to groundbreak these in September during the homecoming events for both schools. Then there's another question as part of that weight room area back there. Someone was asking about a performing arts center. That is part of the plan, but there's no definitive timeline of when the school might do that. That would impact those tennis courts and greatly change how things operate on site. So that's quite a ways down the road. We just said we don't really have an answer for that at that time. So that is where the public was coming from. You know, we had also the unique challenge of constructing in 2 cities. So, you know, I'll let Jeff add anything he wants to add as well, but we do have some opportunities also to access, get pedestrians from Troost through the city of Gladstone through Oak Grove Park. So in construction of the new south area, which we're not really talking about too much because it's in Gladstone, we're going to expand the parking lot. And this is in conjunction with Parks and Recreation in Gladstone. So there's an effort here to kind of combine uses. Gladstone's going to utilize that entry pavilion we're going to use for sporting events at Oak Park for concerts and other public events. So it'll be additional restrooms for them. So there's a little bit of expanded parking, trail, sidewalk, and that kind of connectivity. And then Gladstone has constructed some sidewalk on their portion. So right now, currently, there's not a crosswalk or a way to get across Troost to the sidewalk Gladstone's constructed. I think that would definitely be in play for the school district. I don't want to speak for Jeff too much, but a consideration that there is a pedestrian way to get on site. It's very roundabout. It does not bring you right in off of Troost, but the help with PIAC funds and the construction of 79th is also critical, kind of how to changing how Oak Park is going to operate from a pedestrian standpoint. With that, Jeff, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think you summed it up pretty good, Brian, but we have been working pretty close with the city of Gladstone, particularly Gladstone Parks and Rec, trying to make this a nice amenity for both Oak Grove Park and Oak Park High School. And so we're, like Brian said, I think we would like for you to entertain bringing people through Oak Grove Park using one of their sidewalks to bring people up to the stadium and kind of give them that whole experience of both the park and the high school together. And I think that's it. I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the commissioners to the applicant?
I'm sorry, I have a question that's I think is maybe going to get back to the staff about the parking study. Because as we spoke about before, as it relates to traffic, if it's the same enrollment, the same amount of people that would attend this as would attend any other event at the school, what are you looking for in terms of understanding the parking needs relative to any other event? And I guess this would go back to Olufu.
The code does require parking calculation and a parking table for all uses, all plans that will receive. You see a section in the code that says number of parking required by the code, 88420. And then you need to see if you meet it or not. If you don't, then you will be asking for a variance for that number. So we need to know that based on the stadium, they have adequate parking. I know they do because there's enough parking on the site right now for the entire school and also within Oak Grove Park. But they need to show it on the face of a plan that they do meet it. And if they don't, then we will be asking the Board of Zoning Adjustment for that variance, which then makes sure that they are okay and everybody knows that, okay, they're short by 200 parking or even by 1. So they need to demonstrate that. Without that, I don't know until the impact occurs. And then it came through Plan Commission and came through Board of Zoning Adjustment without us accounting for either they met it or there's a deficiency and we approve it knowing that there is one. But the day that there's an event and then there's not adequate parking, they'll come back to say who approved this, and it'll be Plan Commission and BZ and staff. So I just want to make sure it's on there that we have it and we identify it. And I think they have events now and nothing is going to change. The capacity is just to be able to accommodate people in a better. They do get this many people at events that they do right now. It's just that they are putting in a grandstand for better seating and more restroom and just updating the facility. But we want, it needs to be shown on the plan. It's required. Same with the landscaping plan. It's required as part of the special use permit.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? So at this time, we are going to open up the case to public testimony. Joe, is there anybody out there in that's joined our call that has raised their hand?
No, there isn't.
Okay. So we'll close public testimony, and I guess Mladesh, for the applicant, do you agree with the stated conditions in the staff report? I believe there's 10.
Yes, we do. Jeff, do you have any input?
No, that's good.
Okay.
We agree.
Okay. So at this time, if we can maybe take the site plan off unless somebody wants to talk about it from the commission, and we go back to the grid and kind of see everybody. There we go. So at this time, commissioners, do you want to have a discussion about this project amongst us, or are we ready for a motion?
I was just going to make a comment about the design of the project. I think it really was well cited, and I think the addition, despite being on the south side of the building and not facing a main street, was really thoughtful in the way that they engaged the entry points and connected back to the fields and the new concessions pieces. I think despite kind of being on the back side of the building, it was still really thoughtfully designed. So I appreciate that.
So it sounds like you're ready to make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, before the motion.
Yes, sir.
I just, in this case, what I discussed with the superintendent was rather than try to put trees on truths that's not improved yet, I was asking him for trees along Northeast 79 Terrace, even though the project is not around there and it's not impacted. But because of the new sidewalk improvement, if we put trees around the front of the school, that will make the school, you know, up a little better. And gradually, once we improve truths and we're able to put a sidewalk, then he will account for trees along there. So this is an opportunity for us to make the sidewalk that was put in by the city, have added trees to that to make it, you know, look better. So hopefully he'll come. I hope he gives me as many as he wants. So I'll take as many trees as you guys can give us. So.
I'll say we're
But
thrilled
he'll
to get that.
propose that to us and then we'll review it and get back to him. And hopefully we get enough trees to make that sidewalk pop and make it look good.
Okay. And I think you have that in 1D.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
Move to approve docket number 14 with conditions.
Okay. Yeah, that's 10 conditions. Do I have a motion now? Is there a second?
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Lisa, do you mind taking a roll call?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, so it looks like the motion carries unanimously. And good luck with your project. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome to all you new faces to Planning Commission. Hopefully I don't have to see you guys too much, but we do appreciate your service, and I'm glad we got to be kind of your first run through on a few projects, because you're
You
going to
bet.
see some fun ones. So
Good to
Yes,
see
and
both of you.
yeah, I hope the next time you're in as well, it'll be a little bit more efficiently run. So,
all right, thanks,
yeah,
guys.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Joe, so I think we're going to go back to case number 16 and talk about the continuance of that, whether we're looking at the June 2nd or the 16th on that. And we wanted to hear from the applicant any concerns that they would have if we were to continue that
Yeah.
2 additional weeks.
Yeah, the applicant Brett Cox has joined us. I've just promoted him to a panelist. Brett, I think the question that was being discussed was what date to continue this to. The recommendation that we currently have is to June 2nd, but some commissioners were discussing whether it should go beyond that, and that's why you were given a phone call.
Oh, well, I appreciate that, Joe. Yeah, we would like to be on the June 2nd. We understand that there was a little bit of a hiccup when the plan was submitted and with all the COVID stuff. So, but we definitely like to keep this project moving, and this approval with Planning Commission and then ultimately City Council is a very important part of the funding operation of the Welcome House. We definitely like to be on the June 2nd.
Okay. Is there any questions from the commission to the applicant about continuing this to June 2nd? I know, Forstein, you were asking to see if we could do it the 16th, but it's at the pleasure of the commission. If we keep it on the 2nd to accommodate the developer with their timeline on this project, or any questions there?
Again,
Okay.
I'm not trying to hold up any projects, but since this one is in the community in which I lived, I wanted to be able to weigh in more on the things that have been proposed. But I'm at the pleasure of the majority of the commissioners. I just made my request since I know I won't be available for June 2nd.
Okay. So any other comment of commissioners on the date of continuance of this project?
I could go either way, Chairman Crowell, the 2nd or the 16th. It's no difference for me.
Okay.
I think I'd prefer to have Forrestine present. Anytime there's a commissioner that has an intimate understanding of the neighborhood would be really vital. I don't know if Brett, if you want to go into more detail as to what impact that would have on you. But I think that's where I'm leaning.
I mean, at this point, they are hoping to get started with construction late summer, early fall. Obviously, a 2-week delay is just that. I mean, 2 weeks less of construction time given the weather. Also, once they can get the approval of this plan, that will help them in their fundraising efforts. They are a 501c3, so this isn't a private for-profit developer. They do have some more funds to go raise. So the quicker they can get this approval, the quicker it'll help with that as well.
Brett, this is Patty Knoll. As you know, quite often when we need to continue a case, the staff is able to more or less expedite the request for ordinance to council by having the director introduce the ordinance. So that does save a couple of weeks. And I know that is your concern.
Okay, well, that would be, sounds like that would be an offset then. 16th. Let me just make sure I don't have anything else scheduled on the 16th. That would.
So I think what, for the commissioner's benefit, there is any case that goes on to city council, which this one would. I think Kobe referenced earlier, it's like a 3-step process. And what Patty is stating is that we can help expedite it on that end so their critical path stays the same, but that allows you all to delay it. One thing though that I think should be pointed out, we still have a few people on the line as attendees, and I know some people earlier wanted to speak regarding the continuance of this one. So I would ask anyone who's listening to raise their hand if they want to speak on this continuance request. So they're ready when we get to that. Crowd.
Okay.
I also just want to make one point of clarification. Because I'm expecting that Brett and others will provide a very detailed explanation of the use for the group home and background knowledge, just because of, community concern. So I just want to be mindful that if that's not provided, we may, as a commission, decide to continue it if we don't feel like all the information for us has been provided to ensure the appropriate use or the intended use of this 96 unit group home. So I just want to have that out there so that you don't think, Brett, that we're like, oh, we'll hear it on the 16th and we're going to expedite it. We hope to, if our questions are answered, but just wanted to know.
And when we come to present the case, we'll have the architect with us as well as the CEO of the Welcome House. So we should be able to answer any of your questions and give a good presentation.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? So let's go ahead and then open up the public testimony on this. Joe?
Jeffrey Parks has raised his hand.
Okay. Mr. Parks?
Hello, thank you. I apologize because I've been kind of working through this. I just want to make sure, is this about the Welcome House reconstruction at 27th and West Paseo? Is that what we're discussing?
Yes, it is. Yes.
And we're talking about continuing the whole proceeding about it?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So at this time, we're taking testimony on the continuance case itself, not.
I would prefer if my vote counts at all the 16th, especially if I believe there was a council member that's in the neighborhood. I live right across the street, so I would prefer to do it when she will also be available.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Joe, is there anybody else that's raised their hand?
Mr. Chair, no one else has raised their hand.
Okay. So it sounds like, Mr. Cox, we're going to try to do everything possible to accommodate the schedule on this by hearing the case. It seems like on the 16th, and then assuming that it goes through, try to expedite it back end. But it's, as Commissioner Hill stated, it's not a guarantee. So just want to throw that out to you. As you know. Okay. And I appreciate you coming in and talking to us about this and accommodating, what we're trying to do on the case and the continuance. So any other questions or comments from the commissioners before motion? Okay, seeing none, I'm looking for a motion on continuance of docket item 16.
I'll make a motion that we continue docket number 16th until June 16th with no fee assessed.
Okay, so I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none. Lisa, do you mind taking a roll call, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Okay, so it looks like docket item 16 has been continued to June 16th without a fee, unanimously. So thank you very much, Mr. Cox.
Thank you. We'll see you on the 16th.
Okay, appreciate it. So, Joe, I think that kind of takes us through our docket, except for item number 20. Do I have that right?
And I think that we were just wanting to initiate, the board will at some point relatively soon need to select a vice chair. And that is, we just wanted to initiate that idea and discussion amongst the commission.
Yeah, so obviously being the chair, there may be a time that I have to recuse from certain cases, or I may not be present at an actual meeting. And so the vice chair would actually set in on the cases and run the actual, that case or that actual meeting, depending on which. So we generally like to have somebody identified ahead of time that would like to be the vice chair. And so we wanted to introduce that at this point in time, because I'd like to vote on that by our next meeting. So at this time, if you'd like to be considered for the vice chair position, please state that you would and why you'd like to. And then frankly, if we only have one person that's wanting to do that, then I don't know why we wouldn't vote on that today. But if we have 2 or 3, I think again, then we just kind of weigh what everybody has to say, why they want to be the vice chair, and then we make that vote at the next meeting. Does that sound fair?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Chairman Crowell, do you all have like do you have a pre-meeting with the planning department, just as a high level overview of, hey, here's what's happening, so you would know in advance what items, if you find yourself in a situation where you needed to recuse yourself or traveling and not able to attend?
So generally, knowing that the meetings are when they are, the first and the third Tuesday of the month, I try to plan my whole schedule around that, because I love on the city planning commission, and it takes up a great half of my day at least for that. So I do schedule the whole day to attend these meetings when happens. So I limit my travel for that. But like you said, there are cases that my company's involved with, or I'm involved with directly, that I have to recuse myself. A lot less now than it used to be at my previous role. And so with that, we need somebody to run that. And I would know those cases beforehand and would be able to get out to the rest of the commission that I need to recuse from these certain cases. But then talking about a meeting, I believe Joe and I have a meeting scheduled 1 o'clock on Monday before meetings. And again, it's just to kind of look through the docket and see if there's anything that should be aware of and should know about, just so we can we're on the same page as far as handling the meeting itself, how many people we're going to have, that want to speak from the public and that kind of thing. But and then I believe as chair, I will have, if it's not monthly, a quarterly meeting with the director, just talk through things that are happening from the city planning commission standpoint, anything we need to relay back to the director or even the staff, that, hey, there's some things that we think need to happen to run a little bit better our meetings, or it's running great, let's just continue on with where we're at. So that's the amount of meetings I anticipate that we'll have.
Follow-up question, having been on the previous CPC, I'm wondering, do you think that there's a need for any certain skill set? I mean, I know we have people here who have technical expertise. We have folks that are like more like community engagement and neighborhood, expertise. So just getting a sense from you, you've seen this play out before. Is it better to have 2 technical people or someone, with a different?
No, I don't think it really matters. I think it's just more understanding the flow of the meetings and how they go. That's what it really is the most important, when to ask questions and what questions to ask. You'll find that I tend to ask questions simply to help, so everybody on the commission understands what something is, because a lot already know the answer, but I ask it just to get more explanation, so the applicant know or commission knows. So really, the only skill set I would say is just understanding the flow of the meeting itself.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah. So, if anybody wants to volunteer themselves, I mean, please do. If you don't want to do that right now, you want to give it some thought, certainly do that. We can come back to it at the next meeting, but I wanted to introduce that we do need to have a vice chair as part of the planning commission.
If it's helpful by process of elimination, I'm going to say that I'm not going to volunteer myself so we can get one step closer.
Gotcha.
Okay, Tyler just beat me because I was getting ready to say, look, listening to the additional time commitment for the vice to potentially step into, I also would say that is not a position that I would consider at this time. This is Forrest Sting.
Okay. Anybody else want to remove themselves from the hat? Otherwise, looks like the other four of you are giving it some strong consideration and can put your name in next meeting.
I would remove my name as well because I travel a fair bit with work. So
okay,
those meetings would be maybe difficult at some point when we can travel again, if we can travel.
I'd be willing to do it, but I obviously think other people should volunteer.
Okay. Yeah, this is always the fun part,
It's basically whittling down. Ashley and I mean, I'll volunteer to put my name in as well, but I think you're.
So Coquithia is my first choice, and I would be the second choice. So if Coquithia is willing and interested in doing it, I support her on that.
Thanks, Ashley.
That sounds like a motion.
I think it does. So it sounds like we've got a motion for
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yeah.
Aye.
So you're in, Commissioner Hill, as the vice chair.
Well, thank you all. Thank you all so much.
My condolences or my congratulations for that. Okay.
We'll be nice. We'll be nice. We won't take that much of your time.
Absolutely.
Just when we have
So-
a bunch of continuances, that's when we'll do it.
Yeah, so another item that I probably want to bring up at this meeting, and part of the fun of being the chair of the City Planning Commission, I get to sit on other committees and meetings. So, and one of them being the Municipal Arts Committee. I plan to sit on that and be up with that, but if there's somebody that, frankly, my background is engineering. My favorite color is concrete gray. Things have straight lines and angles. That's what I do. So if there's somebody that has a little bit better of an art background, has a passion for that, and would much prefer to be a part of the Municipal Art Commission and has the time that can sit in some of those meetings, and so please let me know if that's something you'd like to do. Otherwise, I'm fully prepared to sit and do that and do it to my best ability.
And I'm happy to reach out to the staff liaisons that we have for that. We don't staff that committee, and put them in, have them jot down like what the time commitments are, and we can send that to you guys. And maybe you can just talk about it more at the next meeting. So
Yeah, I think we'll do that.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Interesting to talk about some, the Municipal Arts Commission has an interesting scope of work of what they tackle. And so maybe talking about some of these other entities that affect planning, I'd like to have that on the agenda just to understand what the overlap is.
So you're asking, the sound was a little wonky for me. You were asking to have an agenda item at the next meeting to discuss something about Municipal Arts Commission, sounds like.
Yeah, you can hear me now.
I think if you unplug your headphones and plug them back in, it might fix it.
Just try talking.
hear me now?
It's still like it, but go ahead and just try to say what it is. It was it. Do you want?
If I unplug, can you hear me? No. Okay. I'll send it. I'll chat it.
Okay.
Okay, so if is there anything else anybody would like to talk about? Frankly, I thought although it was been a long meeting, I thought it was a really good meeting. It was a great learning process. I think everybody is getting a feel for how the planning commission meetings move, and you'll see as we go through 3 or 4 or 5 meetings, you'll see a lot of the same kind of stuff come through, and you'll better understand what's being asked and what's being done for these. But I enjoy the questions, the comments that you all have, and pleat that up if you don't understand anything. That's what staff is here for. And that way we can also make better decisions for the planning of our land in this great city. So I thank you all for that. If there's nothing else, I seriously love a motion to adjourn the meeting. Don't everybody speak at once, please.
Well, I was reading Ashley's chat, her question
Oh,
she put out
okay.
there.
Gotcha.
Can I get my background?
So she's asking if we can get more background on other planning agencies and commissions that can give context to their scope. So, and specifically in reference to Municipal Arts Commission. Yes, we can start with Municipal Arts Commission and then go from there and see what we can get more, what other boards or commissions might be applicable.
Could we, to that point, is there like a flow chart between like, if you go to PIEA and then how does it interact with us? And then how does it go to council or something? I don't know. I'm there's all sorts of people.
If you've seen a flow chart, let me know. I'd like to see.
Yeah, me too. So I don't know.
I mean, we often have the same question. Yeah, not that I know of, no. But it's a good task for someone to take on.
Yeah, I thought there was a development flow chart that Land Development Department had at one point in time. It had
we have a flow
boxes
chart
on it.
Yeah, we have flow charts of kind of the internal city process, but the overlapping and the external agencies, I have not seen one, but I'm sure it's something that we can put together. I know that we have staff that's very much more familiar with those various agencies that could probably help present that information. We can work on that.
Sounds good.
Something else that just kind of popped up is the overall planning that the city is going through. So please be on the lookout for any opportunity you had to be a part of that. That will come through this commission at some point in time down the road for approval before it goes on. But maybe you can be involved in that particular document. I think it's a great thing.
Chairman Crowell, are we going to also get involved in, I think there's a new green plan that's been developed for the city as well?
Is that the piece that's being done through Mark, or is that something else?
It was back on the council last week, and I just can't remember what it was called, but there was, I think it's next year that they're looking for a lot of community input and then finalizing it again. I just was wondering whether that's coming through our committee as well, or because I think it actually may play as it develops out and gets approved, it will probably influence some of our discussion around approval of plans and so forth as well.
Yeah, it seems like it's
action.
Client action, yeah. Is it climate change, or it was on the
climate action plan?
Climate
KC
action
or something
plan.
like that.
That's it. Yep.
I don't know. I'd have to dig into that and ask the staff people that are working on it. It's not
Yes,
anyone in our.
I can address that. This is Patty Knoll. I'm somewhat involved with the Environmental Management Commission. So I think we should probably have Andy Savastino, who was staff to the Environmental Management Commission, give maybe a brief presentation on that. And that does tie in also to the Urban Forest Master Plan, which will be on your agenda in the near future.
Okay. Is that something you can schedule sometime, Joe, as part of one of our meetings? Maybe not June 2nd, because it seems like it's going to be rather full.
Yeah, I can. And, anything like this, like that's more information, I think it's up to the chair, but you all, Sarah and Kobe, jump in if you disagree, but I think you all can share those ideas with Kobe and he can let us know and we can pursue whether we add it to an agenda item so that staff's prepared to answer the question at these meetings.
Yeah.
I think it would need to be an agenda item for us to be prepared for it, is all I'm saying.
Right. Yeah, I think typically the chair has worked with staff in identifying a date for discussion items at the end of the agenda. So that's how we've done it in the past.
Okay.
And I would just like to say thanks, Chairman Crowell, for your leadership today. Getting us through the first meeting. New commission is not an easy task. And the same with staff. So appreciate everything everybody's done today. Much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Thank you.
I would also just ask you guys to check your email. I was just gauging interest to see if you all wanted to hop on a bus for maybe 2 or 3 hours and go through each council district. I'm not familiar with every council district and I'm a visual learner. So just want to know if you guys want me to try to plan something where we can go over an area plan, see a development that we felt or the planning department felt met those conditions. And
that's on hold, is it not? Didn't Sarah say we need to put that on hold because she's got to check into some things?
Oh, okay. I didn't see that.
That would be a public meeting, and so we'd need to, post notice of a meeting like that, and the public would need to have the opportunity to participate. And so we've done that. I've only done it a couple of times, and it's been years, with other boards.
Yeah.
Where they wanted to see, a development projects for different incentive agencies, for example. I think with the virus and all of the health issues that just makes it a little more difficult to organize something. I mean, we can't have obviously a full bus, for example. No. So I'm going to have to give that some thought and see if we can figure out a way to manage that and still meet the sunshine law requirements that we have to meet.
Thanks,
Sarah. If we're talking about projects that are not going to be coming before the commission, like projects that already did and have been constructed in certain council districts, and staff were to give them a list and they each just drove by them on their own, there would be no harm in that, correct? If they wanted to familiarize themselves with stuff that's the past commission has seen, or maybe we can talk about it offline and get back with the commission on that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or use Zoom on the bus. I mean, I don't know, but just FYI. Thank you guys, though.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
So if I have a question on Zoom, Joseph, I need to talk to you offline on that.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I'll give you
the best person.
Okay, I'm gonna give you a ringy dingy, Joe.
All right. All right. All right. Good job, everyone.
Great. Yeah, this has been good. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You as well.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. We'll see you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.